Every school class contains a cheerful person who lightens the mood and a lonely one who feels out of place. The narrator introduces the beginning of this specific situation. Mihara looks back at a girl while checking his phone. He has a secret story with a Sanagi who sends him a message asking to come over to his place later that day. Mihara thinks about how much he dislikes the spring season. A new school year begins, marking a period for meeting new people. The teacher introduces herself to the class and hands out introductory forms. The teacher decides to use the remaining class time for student introductions based on the forms they filled out. Mihara sits at his desk with his heart racing. Mihara calculates the timing of the introductions. He hopes that if everyone takes a few minutes, the time will run out, or the class will lose interest before his turn comes. The teacher calls on Mihara to be the first person to introduce himself. Maki Mihara stands up and explains that he moved to the town last year from a middle school in a different prefecture. His form lists video games as a hobby and states he has no other particular interests. The teacher asks Mihara what he likes to do on the weekends. He tells the class he orders pizza on Fridays, plays video games, drinks cola, and watches videos. The teacher pushes for more information, so Mihara mentions that he watches films. The classroom goes silent as the teacher asks what kind of movies he likes. Mihara becomes overwhelmed by the attention and wishes the introduction would end. The teacher continues to smile and wait for his answer. Mihara admits to the class that he likes B-tier films, specifically movies about sharks. Mihara slumps over his desk, regretting his honesty and feeling like his social standing in the class is already ruined. The teacher moves on and calls for the next student, Amami. Amami Yu stands up and introduces herself with high energy. She explains how the characters in her name relate to the sun, the sea, and the evening before telling everyone it is a pleasure to meet them. The teacher notes that Amami came from Takabana Girls' School and asks why she chose to transfer. Amami explains that she thought a mixed school would be a better environment and asks Yumi for her opinion. Yumi tells her not to put her on the spot so suddenly. Amami suggests that Yumi should introduce herself next since she has already been mentioned. The teacher agrees and mentions that there is not much time left. Yumi decides to give a brief introduction to the class. Yumi Asanagi introduces herself and mentions she attended the same school as Yu. Yu tells the class to give Yumi plenty of affection, but Yumi retorts that she is not a dog. The class laughs and finds their interaction charming. Mihara observes that the two girls will clearly be the center of attention in the class from now on. He decides their popularity has nothing to do with him and returns to his own thoughts. Half a year later, Yu leans on Yumi at the end of the school week and asks for praise for not falling asleep in class. Yumi tells her to wake up properly if she wants to be complimented, noting they still have an ethics class after lunch. Mihara watches them from a distance. The narrator explains that the boys in the class have labeled Amami the cutest girl and Asanagi the second cutest. This has become their established reputation among the male students. Yu invites Yumi to go somewhere after school since it is Friday, but Yumi declines, saying she has other plans. Mihara listens from his seat and reflects on how easy it is for someone without friends to overhear conversations. Yumi mentions there is a film she wants to watch. Yu is surprised and asks if it is something important or what genre it might be. Mihara's mind immediately turns to the shark movies he likes. Yu asks if the movie is an action or romance film and suggests they could watch it together. Mihara scolds himself for eavesdropping and doubts that Yumi would have the same niche interests as him. Mihara wonders if Asanagi actually enjoys films since she usually seems to prefer spending time outdoors. Yumi tells Yu to have a look at her phone to see the movie in question. Yumi notes that she was expecting a surprised reaction and tells Yu not to worry because she was going to watch it alone anyway. Yu insists that she is not judging Yumi's personal tastes. Yu promises to make it up to Yumi the following day since she is free all day. Yumi accepts the promise as the two continue to talk. Mihara realizes it is Friday and recalls that his mother is away for a meeting, leaving him alone to eat pizza and watch movies. He tells himself that despite Yumi also watching films, their lives are fundamentally different. Nearby, other male students comment that Amami is as much of an angel as usual. The boys discuss how Asanagi is also very pretty in her own way. Mihara agrees that they are both attractive but finds himself comparing them when they are together. Later, he walks past a pizza shop. Mihara visits a pizza shop where the clerk recognizes him. The worker greets him and asks if he wants his usual order. Mihara walks home with his pizza and wonders why he always orders the same thing. He decides to stop by the movie rental store to see if there are any new arrivals. Mihara thinks about his routine and admits to himself that while he does not mind spending his days doing nothing, he feels like something is missing. Mihara wishes he had a friend to talk nonsense with, and his hobbies like watching films or playing video games. He imagines how much fun it would be to just walk home together with someone else. At the store, Mihara wonders what kind of movies Asanagi likes and guesses she might be into anime since Yuu did not want to join her. He suddenly spots a new movie on the shelf. Mihara thinks about the boys comparing the two girls and realizes he dislikes hearing people talk, as if Asanagi is inferior. He continues browsing the shelves alone. Mihara continues to dwell on how the other boys do not really know Asanagi. He accidentally bumps into someone while reaching for a movie and apologizes only to realize it is Asanagi herself. She calls him rude for not noticing she had been standing there for a while. Mihara says her name in surprise, and she confirms that it is indeed her. Asanagi points toward the shelf and indicates the movies she was looking at. Mihara feels his heart start to race. Asanagi points out that they have never actually spoken before and asks Mihara if he would recommend the films on that shelf. Mihara awkwardly agrees to help her find something if she does not mind his specific tastes. Mihara shows her a movie called Piranha Shark, and Asanagi begins to laugh. Asanagi laughs at the nonsensical idea of mini sharks and suggests piranhas would make more sense. Mihara explains that the realistic yet surreal look is part of the appeal and mentions he has wanted to buy it since its release, noting the TV series is also good. Asanagi asks if the movie Kung Fu Shark is also a good one. Mihara is completely stunned by her question. Mihara excitedly asks if she has seen it and calls the film a masterpiece. Asanagi agrees and says that the viewer gets completely immersed in the story. Mihara laughs and admits he never imagined she would be planning to watch that kind of film alone. Asanagi realizes he must have been listening when she was talking to Yuu earlier, which causes Mihara to freeze in shock. Asanagi tells Mihara that eavesdropping on conversations is not a good habit. Mihara stammers an apology and tries to deny that he was listening. Asanagi tells him not to worry about it since they were being loud enough for anyone to hear. She says that she should be the one to apologize instead. Asanagi admits that what she told Yuu earlier was not the whole truth. She explains that her real goal was different. Asanagi points a finger at Mihara. He is surprised and asks if she is talking about him, and she confirms that she is. Asanagi states that she has some business with him and asks if that is all right. Mihara looks at her in confusion. Mihara lets out a small sound of shock as he processes the sudden confrontation. Asanagi reaches into her bag while telling him he does not seem to know the truth. She says it took a lot of courage to talk to him and hands him a piece of paper. Mihara looks down at the paper with wide, surprised eyes. The paper is Asanaga's introduction card where she admits her real hobbies are indoor activities like video games and B-tier films. She notes her love for soda and expresses a wish to find a friend who has her interests. Asanagi giggles and points out that she was just as honest as Mihara was on his form. Mihara realizes they are in the same situation. Mihara looks at the card and acknowledges that he understands her meaning. Asanagi stands before him in the store aisle. Asanagi calls out Mihara's name. Asanagi asks Mihara if they can be friends. She stands still among the shelves waiting for his answer. Asanagi looks at Mihara with a determined expression, hoping for a positive response. Mihara asks if it is okay for him to stop by his house first to drop off the hot pizza he bought. Asanagi tells him that is fine. Mihara's mother rushes through the house complaining that he did not wake her up at 7 as she requested. He reminds her that he did wake her up, but she insisted she did not need to rush. She retorts that he should not have trusted her word. Mihara asks his mother if she is going to skip breakfast. She tells him she will just have coffee while she prepares to leave for work. Mihara's mother comments that he looks taller than before. He says he hasn't grown a millimeter since last spring and expects he won't get any taller. She laughs at his humble attitude. Mihara's mother mentions she has night duty today and tells him to eat dinner properly. He asks if she is all right since she has been working so many night shifts lately. She assures him she is fine and appreciates his help around the house. She leaves as Mihara realizes today is Friday. As she is heading out, Mihara's mother suddenly asks him if he has made any new friends yet. He is caught off guard by the question. Mihara tells his mother not to worry about him and that he will be fine without friends. She acknowledges they have moved frequently, but says she is heading out to work and thanks him for making her lunch. Mihara reflects on his situation and thinks about how he is generally a lonely person. His mother slams the door as she exits. Mihara realizes that he actually does have a friend now, even if it is just one person. Mihara recalls the moment in the movie store when Asanagi asked him to be her friend. Mihara nervously tells Asanagi that he would like to be her friend, but worries that he is not good enough. Asanagi is surprised by his self-doubt. Asanagi explains that her other friends do not enjoy B-tier films, which makes it awkward to talk about her interests with them. She tells Mihara that she just wants someone she can talk to and really wants to be friends with him. Asanagi asks Mihara if they can keep their friendship a secret. He rubs the back of his head, looking a bit confused by the request. Mihara agrees that a secret is best because they are so different and people might get the wrong idea. He worries that if others see them together, they might judge her for being friends with a weirdo like him. Asanagi puts a finger to her lips and agrees to keep it a secret. She acknowledges that he might end up lying about his hobbies to others otherwise and says she understands perfectly. Mihara and Asanagi decide to exchange phone numbers so they can stay in contact. Mihara looks a bit stunned as they finalize the arrangement. Asanagi arrives at Mihara's door and greets him casually. She presents a bag of items as a gift for letting her into his home, and he thanks her. Mihara thinks about how he usually spends Friday afternoons doing nothing, but today his new friend Asanagi has joined him. He mentions the pizzas he ordered, worrying she might not like them. Asanagi asks for the details, and he lists several heavy combinations featuring garlic teriyaki chicken and extra mayonnaise. Asanagi excitedly reveals that those specific pizzas are actually her favorites. Mihara is happy to realize they the same tastes. The two clink glasses and celebrate their time together, agreeing to repeat the hangout next week. Mihara suggests a rematch in their video game, and Asanagi confidently tells him that she is going to win this time. Mihara points out that she lost 10 times in a row during their last session. Asanagi dismisses the losses and claims she has been practicing at home to get better. As they play, Asanagi shouts in frustration when Mihara takes her weapon in the game. He tells her that on a digital battlefield, winning is all that matters regardless of being a coward or scum. Mihara observes that, while Asanagi clearly doesn't spend all day playing and isn't very good at games, she truly enjoys the experience. He watches her laugh as they continue to play. The two continue their gaming session while sitting on the floor with their pizza. They laugh together as they discuss the mechanics and items within the game. Eventually, Asanagi checks the time and realizes she needs to head home. Mihara agrees it is time to call it a day. Asanagi offers to help clean up the mess, but he insists on doing it himself, saying he just needs to wash the cups and toss the trash. Mihara watches Asanagi as she helps gather the garbage. He reflects on how much she eats and her love for soda and strong flavors, wondering if all girls are similar to her. Asanagi catches him staring and jokingly calls him a pervert. Mihara nervously explains that he is just jealous because she stays thin despite her large appetite. Asanagi attributes her physique to regular exercise. Mihara reaches out and pinches her waist to check for fat, causing her to jump and laugh. He immediately realizes his mistake and feels embarrassed. Asanagi retaliates by grabbing Mihara, realizing she has found a weak spot. She laughs as she prepares to tease him. Asanagi begins tickling Mihara, ignoring his pleas for her to stop. She tells him she won't quit because she is still stressed from losing so many games to him, and he jokingly calls her a demon. Asanagi teases Mihara, telling him he was really cute and asking if he actually enjoyed the tickling. Mihara is mortified that he made such feminine noises and shoves her toward the exit while telling her to leave. At the door, Asanagi tells Mihara that she had a wonderful time today. Mihara watches her in silence as she prepares to depart. Asanagi admits she didn't originally intend to spend the whole day at his house, but couldn't think of anything else since she doesn't know what friends are supposed to do. Mihara looks completely shocked by her honest confession. Asanagi tells Mihara she will see him on Monday. He stands in the doorway and wonders about the meaning of her words as she turns to go. The front door of the house is closed, signaling the end of their Friday afternoon together. Mihara walks through the school corridor thinking about how Asanagi visits him every Friday afternoon. He passes Asanagi while she is surrounded by her group of popular friends. The girls in the classroom chat loudly, asking if everyone watched the movie that aired last Friday. They talk about how cool the male lead was and how pretty the heroine looked. A friend asks Asanagi if she saw the film, but Asanagi lies and says she didn't watch it in time. Mihara listens from a few desks away as the friend offers to tell her the plot. Asanagi explains that she was busy with research and didn't finish until it was too late. Her friends comment on her behaving like a typical honor student. Mihara stares ahead, contemplating the secret bond and how different Asanagi acts when she is with her other friends. Asanagi rests her chin on her hand and smiles softly, appearing perfectly comfortable with the secret she keeps from the rest of the class. During the lunch break, Mihara sits alone outside to eat his meal. He wonders to himself if he can really consider himself Asanagi's friend given their situation. Mihara thinks about how he needs to be more careful with his words when they hang out. He checks their text messages where they both confirm that nobody at school has noticed their friendship yet. Mihara realizes that Asanagi is his very first friend. She has shown him the joy of spending time with someone else, and he is determined not to do anything stupid to lose her. Mihara sits alone on a bench with his lunchbox, reflecting on how maintaining a friendship is much more difficult than he ever anticipated. Mihara notices something happening nearby. A girl asks an upperclassman why he wanted to see her there. The senpai tells her he has something important to say. Mihara hides behind a wall to eavesdrop, thinking that the guy looks very serious. Nina suddenly appears and whispers that he isn't alone. Nina pulls Mihara over to where she and Amami are hiding. She tells him to stay quiet as another person approaches the scene. Amami recognizes Mihara and says his name in surprise. He looks back at her, shocked to find her there. Nina asks Yuu if she knows the boy. Yuu introduces him as Maki Mihara from their class. Nina then asks Mihara if he minds if they stay and watch with him. Yuu offers Mihara a quick apology for the intrusion while they continue to hide together. Mihara watches from his hiding spot as Asanagi stands alone with the upperclassmen. The senpai asks Asanagi if she will go out with him. Mihara's eyes widen as he hears the confession. Two birds peck at a box in the foreground while Mihara, Yuu, and Nina watch the confession from the background. Mihara wonders if the guy is a second or third year since Asanagi called him senpai. He notes that the guy seems remarkably confident and is even smiling during his confession. Asanagi bows and apologizes, turning him down. Mihara feels like he shouldn't be watching this, but Yuu tells the others to shut up so they can keep listening. The senpai asks if she already has someone she likes. Asanagi says no, but explains that she just isn't interested in romance at the moment. Mihara, Nina, and Yuu stay huddled together while watching them. Nina remarks that the guy got shot down and decides that he was no good anyway. Mihara looks confused by her harsh assessment. Yuu excitedly tells Mihara that the same guy said the exact same thing to her in that very same spot. Mihara agrees that it's bad but wonders why she is sharing that with him. Mihara notes that this is already the 5th confession Yumi has received this year. He reflects on how guys always seem to approach her out of nowhere whenever they spend time together. Nina points out that Yuu has also rejected 5 guys herself. Yuu explains that none of those boys were serious because they all kept smiling even after she turned them down. Yuu reasons that those guys only go after the backup dancer because they know they have no chance with the main idol. Mihara thinks to himself that he can understand the reasoning even if the comparison is a little odd. Yuu asks Mihara if he agrees and admits that she would pursue Yumi too if she were a boy. Mihara is caught off guard by the question. Nina tells Yuu that peeping on a confession is a bad idea. Yuu justifies it by saying Yumi is her friend and she was worried because of the senior's reputation. The senpai asks if they can at least start as friends since they can't be a couple. Yumi apologizes, asks if they are finished, and tells him she is leaving now. Yumi continues walking away and says she has no time for such nonsense. Yuu apologizes to Mihara for involving him while Nina urges them to head back through a shortcut before they are discovered. Mihara tells them he doesn't mind. Yuu explains that Yumi would be upset if she found out they were watching her. She asks Mihara to promise that they will keep this entire situation a secret. Mihara looks surprised and remains silent as he processes the request. Mihara tells Yuu that she doesn't need to worry about the secret. He feels like hiding the truth is doing something wrong toward Asanagi. Mihara thinks about how he doesn't have any friends in his contacts and isn't officially acquainted with Asanagi. Nina calls out for Yuu to hurry up as Yuu listens to him. Yuu asks to borrow Mihara's phone for a second. He hands it over while wondering what she is doing. Yuu registers her number in Mihara's phone and saves his to hers. She tells him that they are friends now and then quickly changes the subject. Yu leans in close to Mihara and tells him to promise not to tell anyone about what they saw. Mihara adds this to his growing list of secrets and wonders what would happen if the truth ever got out. Mihara looks at his phone and thinks about his feelings. He reflects that even though he and Asanagi the same hobbies and interests, she still feels like she is in a completely different league than him. Back at his house, Asanagi waves her hand to get Mihara's attention and asks if he was even listening to her. He snaps out of his thoughts and apologizes for being distracted. Asanagi explains that she was asking if he wanted to go out together next Friday. Mihara agrees before the specific phrasing of the invitation actually registers with him, and he realizes she meant leaving the house. Asanagi asks if he already has other plans for Friday. Mihara admits that he is pretty much free every single day, which seems to surprise her slightly. Mihara clarifies if she means hanging out outside the house after school. She asks what else the invitation could possibly mean as he processes the idea of actually being out in public with her. Mihara asks if it will really just be the two of them. Asanagi says she feels bad for always hanging out at his place and wants to show him some of the spots she visits, promising that she won't tell anyone else. Mihara becomes anxious about the idea of being out on a Friday when the streets are full of students, thinking it is the natural environment for someone popular like Asanagi. He worries it is a bad idea, but she tells him not to worry. Asanagi jokes that she will bring her own money so he doesn't have to worry about her. Mihara replies that paying for oneself is an obvious thing to do, and she laughs at the joke. Mihara suddenly apologizes to Asanagi again, which causes her to wonder what he is sorry for this time. Mihara confesses that he actually saw her being confessed to by a senior. He explains that he was having lunch nearby and happened to see it by accident. Mihara explains that he didn't mean to watch and apologizes. Asanagi seems relieved and says that he had her worried for a second. Asanagi asks for confirmation that he only saw it by accident. Mihara asks if she is truly not angry with him for witnessing it. Asanagi mentions she heard some whispering nearby but doesn't mind talking about the confession. Mihara is relieved he didn't mention that Amami was also there and comments on how popular Asanagi really is. Asanagi admits she might be a bit popular but notes it is nothing compared to Yu. Mihara is stunned that she considers 5 confessions in 6 months to be only a small amount, and she asks him if he is jealous. Asanagi asks Mihara why he wouldn't be jealous of her popularity. Mihara denies being jealous and reflects on how he would never tell her to find other girlfriends instead of him. He admits to himself that their current situation is still a bit strange. Mihara's his belief that being truly popular means being liked by many people for who one actually is, rather than just having charisma. Mihara continues his thought, noting that even with many admirers, there will be people she doesn't like, making it difficult for her to handle everyone. Mihara recalls how deeply Asanagi bows her head every time she has to reject a confession. Mihara admits that he finds the constant effort of trying to make everyone happy exhausting and prefers being honest. Asanagi calls out his name. Asanagi tells Mihara that he is being hyperbolic, and he lets out a grumble of annoyance. Mihara focuses on his handheld game and admits he knows he is being dramatic, but he explains it is because he is such a dedicated loner. Asanagi tells Mihara that his specific personality is exactly what she likes about him. Mihara quickly clarifies that she means they are just friends and says he feels the same way about her. Asanagi ignores the sentiment to brag about her improved aim in their video game, claiming the student has become the master. Asanagi tells Mihara to make sure they have as much fun as possible during their outing next week, and he agrees. At school, Amami asks Yumi if they can walk home together, but Yumi says she has business to attend to. Nina mentions that Yumi has seemed unusually happy lately, but Yumi claims she is just imagining things. Amami and Nina tease Yumi, suggesting she must have a boyfriend if she is always looking forward to something. Yumi nervously insists that they are wrong. Amami says she will go home with Nina instead. A male student tells Nina not to make Amami cry, but Nina tells him to mind his own business. Amami offers to help Yumi with whatever is making her busy, but Yumi politely turns her down. Amami stands alone in front of the school buildings and looks off into the distance with a pensive expression. Mihara arrives for the meeting as promised, wearing the newest shirt he owns despite buying it a year ago. He waits outside and worries about the possibility of bumping into someone from school, but he knows it is too late to cancel now. Asanagi arrives and calls out to Mihara, noting that he is there early. She explains that she also came as fast as she could and smiles at him. Mihara nervously urges Asanagi to move quickly, claiming it is dangerous to hang around the meeting spot. He worries about how they would explain themselves if they ran into someone from school. Asanagi looks up and suggests that they could just be honest and tell people what they really are to each other. Mihara freezes in shock until Asanagi tells him she was just kidding. He lets out a groan of frustration while his face remains red. A brief note explains that people who can incorporate non-essential items into their outfits are considered fashionable. Asanagi laughs at Mihara for being dressed entirely in black, calling him the darkness itself. He tries to defend his choice by mentioning the high quality of the fabric. Asanagi tells Mihara to wear something more colorful next time. He asks where they should go, and she admits she has no plan since she usually just walks aimlessly when she is with Yu. Asanagi asks Mihara if there is a specific place where he usually spends his time. He jokes about being treated like a video game monster, but admits there is a shop he likes, though he thinks it isn't a suitable place to take a girl. Asanagi tells Mihara to lead the way, and he agrees to show her his usual spot. The two arrive at an anime and hobby store. Asanagi stands in front of the entrance and stares at the displays in silence. Asanagi becomes incredibly excited, noting that it is her first time visiting a shop like this. Mihara is stunned by her reaction and offers a quick apology, but she says everything feels brand new to her. Mihara tells Asanagi to stop her excessive reaction, but she reiterates that she has never been to such a place before. He laughs and agrees that she doesn't seem like the type of person who would visit a hobby shop. Asanagi tells Mihara to stop being so formal and to quit adding a suffix to her name since they are friends. Mihara is caught off guard by her request. Mihara tries calling her by just her last name. Asanagi stops and stares at him blankly, causing him to panic and ask if he went too far or if he should have said something else. Yumi tells Mihara that she wants him to call her by her first name. He becomes flustered and starts to use her name but still adds a formal suffix. Yumi tells him that she would have called him by his first name too if he had been able to do it. Mihara argues that they are not close enough yet to use first names. He shouts that he will get his revenge and calls her an idiot. Yumi is surprised that he used such a word toward her. Yumi jokes that since she is an idiot, she will go check out the adult section of the store. Mihara panics and tries to pull her back while apologizing for what he said. The two look at the new manga releases for the day. Mihara asks if Yumi likes the genre, and she correctly guesses that he prefers stories with a lot of fighting. She notes that their tastes seem to be very similar. Yumi spots a romantic comedy and asks Mihara if he also enjoys that genre. She finds the art cute and notices that the first chapter is available to read for free. Mihara gives her permission to read it right there. Yumi admits she was expecting something more indecent because of Mihara's previous comments. He asks why she would think that as they look at the book together. Yumi finishes reading the manga and says that she really enjoyed the story. Yumi reflects on how every character in the manga seems so kind. She says that stories like this feel like an escape from the stress of their daily lives. Asanagi asks Mihara if he is hungry. The two visit a burger shop where Mihara immediately notices other students from their school. He worries that coming to such a popular place was a bad idea, but Asanagi tells him to wait as she leads him inside. Asanagi happily eats her burger and tells Mihara it is delicious. She tells him not to worry about being seen because they can just pretend to be other people since they are wearing casual clothes. While eating, Asanagi asks Mihara where they should go next. He says he needs a moment to think, so she suggests going to a game center to take photos with cool poses. Mihara is skeptical about being able to pull off a cool pose. Asanagi is excited about trying the photo booth. Mihara asks her if she has ever seen a film called Angel Sharks, and she admits that she has not heard of it. Mihara explains that the movie is about genetically modified sharks with wings that hunt people. He describes it as perfectly surreal and mentions it is available to watch online for a limited time. Asanagi says she wants to see it. Asanagi suggests that they watch the movie together next week. Mihara asks if she is really sure she wants to hang out with him every single week, but she just smiles at him from across the table. Asanagi asks if Mihara is worried about Yu and the others. He listens while eating a fry. Asanagi tells Mihara that he worries too much. She says it's fine since they already see each other every day except for Fridays. Asanagi notes that Mihara is the only one who has her hobbies. She explains how she got interested in games and B-tier movies by borrowing them from her older brother, but realized nobody else seemed to like those things. Asanagi continues saying that, because nobody D her interests, she was mostly on her own at first. Asanagi explains that she thought it would be more fun if she could hang out with someone with the same interests. She tells Mihara she has always wanted to make a friend like him. Mihara realizes that was the reason she approached him the way she did when they first met. Nearby, a group of girls recognizes Asanagi and begins to whisper. One girl whispers that she is the first year who flatly rejected a senpai. Mihara suggests to Asanagi that it might be time to use their strategy of pretending to be someone else. The girls continue guessing if it is really her from behind and wonder who the boy sitting with her is. The girls suggest that Asanagi must have incredibly high standards or is just pretending to be special by rejecting everyone. They laugh as they gossip about her. Asanagi apologizes to Mihara and asks if she can make him feel just a little bit embarrassed. Mihara is confused by her sudden question. Asanagi leans forward with a fry and calls Mihara darling. She asks him to open up for a bite. Mihara is completely mortified as he opens his mouth. The girls watching are shocked by the display, so Asanagi loudly claims that this is how they always interact when they are at home. Mihara kicks her under the table to get her to stop. Asanagi ignores him and asks him to feed her too, while calling him darling again, leaving the onlookers speechless. Asanagi closes her eyes and opens her mouth waiting for Mihara to feed her. Mihara feeds her, and she happily says the food is yummy. The other girls decide she can't be Asanagi after all, since she previously said she wasn't dating anyone. Mihara watches the gossiping girls walk away as they comment that Asanagi's personality isn't creepy and mention she dislikes potatoes. He looks at Asanagi, who is slumped over the table, and tells her not to die while asking if she is all right. Mihara says he is used to people talking about him, but Asanagi sits up and argues that she couldn't stand them making fun of him when they know nothing about his real self. Mihara tells Asanagi not to worry about it and notes that at least she knows how he really is. He gives her a gentle smile as she looks down at her drink. Asanagi looks at Mihara with a blush and says she will stop ambushing him if he wants, but then she immediately takes it back and says she cannot do that. Mihara watches her with a confused expression. The two of them leave the burger shop and arrive at a game center. Mihara brings over a large cup of medals and tells Asanagi that the amount should be enough to last them for at least an hour. She thanks him as he looks pleased with the haul. Asanagi becomes incredibly excited and shouts for them to get rich. Mihara tells her that she sounds exactly like an old man at a casino. Asanagi is very confident and tells Mihara to just wait for her to win. He reminds her that it is not real horse racing, though he admits they could get a lot of medals back. He secretly thinks to himself that he is actually good at the game. The two sit down to play a horse racing game and watch as the race starts with horse number 8 in the lead. Mihara stares at the screen and tells the horse to stay in its current place. Asanagi cheers loudly for the horses to keep going as she watches the digital race unfold. The machine dispenses a massive pile of winning medals. Asanagi cheers in disbelief, while Mihara realizes that it is now going to take them much longer than an hour to run out of coins. Asanagi points out that there are plenty of other games they haven't tried yet, and claims their winning streak is only the beginning. She urges them to get even richer, which makes Mihara think she has gone a bit crazy. Mihara watches Asanagi and reflects on how the boys in class label Emami the cutest and Asanagi the second cutest. He recalls how everyone sees her as a calm and quiet leader in class. Mihara watches Asanagi as she focuses intensely on the screen. He thinks about how he has known from the very beginning just how different she actually is compared to her public image. Asanagi laughs with pure joy as she wins another round. Mihara watches her with a small smile as she celebrates her success. Mihara looks at the game results on the screen and reflects on how happy he is to have become friends with Asanagi. Mihara notices that Asanagi has a pencil tucked behind her ear while she checks her betting ticket. He comments on her intense gambler-like appearance as she grins. Asanagi crouches on the floor in despair after losing almost all of their medals. Mihara tells her not to worry and suggests they go use the rest of his spare change on other games. The two move to the batting center, where Asanagi lets out a loud shout as she swings her bat at a high-speed pitch. Asanagi finishes her turn and tells Mihara that it is now his turn to bat. Mihara is left stunned, wondering how a girl could hit a ball moving at 120 kilometers per hour so easily. Asanagi tries to motivate Mihara by telling him he can win a free turn if he hits a home run. Mihara admits he is unsure of himself, but she tells him to relax and promises he can do it. Mihara repeatedly swings and misses the pitches, feeling increasingly embarrassed as he fails to make contact with a single ball. Mihara is left gasping for breath while Asanagi watches from behind the fence. She asks if she should lower the ball's speed for him, but he stubbornly refuses and claims he can handle the same speed she did. Asanagi tells Mihara that he just needs to focus and stop trying so hard to hit it out of the park. Mihara agrees to try again and gets into his batting stance while she notes his good hand-eye coordination. Mihara follows Asanagi's advice and finally manages to make solid contact with the ball. Mihara shouts in triumph after finally getting a hit, and Asanagi cheers for him with her arms raised. He excitedly suggests they go for one more round together, and she happily agrees. Asanagi adjusts her batting helmet and tells Mihara that he isn't bad for someone who doesn't participate in sports clubs. She credits her own skill to having grown up around Yuu since they were children. Asanagi explains that Yuu is naturally talented at everything except studying and notes, that it would be a problem if she applied herself to anything other than sports. Mihara takes a deep breath and thinks about how normal it feels to be out hanging with someone. Mihara swings at the final pitch of the session. Afterward, Asanagi hands him a canned tea as a reward for his efforts. The two sit down to rest after using up all their tokens. Mihara vows to hit the ball harder next time while Asanagi tells him not to overthink it and points out that he at least managed to get a few bunts. Asanagi sips her tea and reminds Mihara that there is always next time. Mihara looks at her and simply agrees. Asanagi mentions how tired she is because it has been a long time since she exercised. She laughs and notes that they would definitely lose weight if they continued doing this. Mihara thinks it is about time to head home. Asanagi asks if they should call it a day. Asanagi says she will just use the restroom for a minute since it is getting late. Mihara tells her he will wait. Mihara sits alone on the bench and stares ahead, lost in his thoughts. He reflects on how he had originally planned to be alone for all 3 years of high school, but he is glad he came out today. Suddenly, someone calls out his name. Amami runs toward him with a big smile holding a stuffed bear. She is excited to find him there and greets him loudly. Mihara is terrified because Nina and several other classmates are also approaching. He worries that it will be a disaster if Asanagi returns now. In the restroom, Asanagi looks at 2 different lipsticks in her hands. Asanagi stands at the sink and contemplates which product to use. Asanagi hears her phone ringing on the counter and reaches for it. Asanagi picks up the call and asks Mihara what is going on. Amami leans in and asks Mihara if he usually spends his time at this game center. Mihara stammers as Amami asks if he is waiting for a friend. He has his phone out and is currently in the middle of calling Asanagi. Amami is glad to hear that Mihara has a friend and notes that they seem to be close. Mihara awkwardly agrees while clutching his bag. Amami explains that she was worried because Mihara is always alone in the classroom. She leans toward him while he remains seated on the bench. Mihara starts to respond but hesitates, looking away with a conflicted expression. Amami tells Mihara that he can always call her if he ever feels lonely. She gives him a gentle, supportive smile. Amami suggests they could even chat during lunchtime. In the background, some other boys look at Mihara with irritation. Mihara nervously says he might do that one of these days. Mihara tries to make his exit, but Amami calls out for him to wait. Amami asks Mihara if he wants to join their group, arguing that the more people there are, the merrier it will be. She clarifies that everyone pays for their own meals. Mihara is caught completely off guard by the offer. Nina interjects and asks Yuu if she is bothering Mihara, suggesting he might be busy and wondering what his friend would think. Mihara begins to say something but stops. Amami gets a sad, starry-eyed look and asks if the others don't want to play with Mihara. The boys in the back immediately panic and shout that they definitely want to include him. Amami giggles and says that it is more fun for everyone to be together. In the restroom, Asanagi looks at her phone as the call continues. Asanagi stares intensely at her phone screen as she listens to Yuu's suggestion for everyone to play together. Mihara looks at Amami and starts to apologize, saying it would be better another time. Mihara tells Amami that he simply cannot go with them right now. The focus shifts to Asanaga's mouth as she speaks into her phone. Asanaga's voice comes through the speaker stating that she doesn't think Amami is wrong. Mihara grips his phone in shock while Amami and the others look at him in confusion. Asanaga's voice comes through the phone telling Mihara that joining the others is normal and would probably be fun. She pauses as she looks down at her phone in the restroom, adding a quiet contradiction to her previous statement. Mihara thinks about how he doesn't fit into large groups and worries about ruining the mood or exhausting himself. He admits to himself that some people find his presence difficult. Mihara understands the importance of group harmony but feels the weight of playing a part in it. He watches his classmates socializing and wonders if the effort is always necessary. Mihara looks at Asanagi and considers that she might also want a place to escape from constant social pressure. He realizes he wants to protect the private space they have built together. Mihara turns to Amami and explains that he is already hanging out with his friend. He states firmly that neither of them is interested in joining a large group today. Mihara apologizes to Amami and says that being alone is simply how he and his friend are. He stands his ground despite her surprised reaction. Mihara walks away from the group and heads back toward the inner area of the games center. Night falls over the station as Amami and her friends walk away together, leaving Mihara behind. Asanagi meets up with Mihara near a vending machine and greets him casually. She notes that he didn't join Amami's group and admits she wouldn't have come back if he had. Asanagi thanks Mihara for holding onto her wallet and keys while she was away. Mihara feels a strange sense of relief but struggles to find the right words to express his feelings. Asanagi laughs and brags about how she used to stand out as a smart and cute student. Mihara watches her and agrees with her self-assessment. Asanagi reveals that she used to be a leader and served as the student council president. She admits she used to enjoy being depended on by her peers in the past. Asanagi explains that large crowds create an atmosphere of expectation where she feels forced to be on top. Mihara asks if it feels like being forced into roles she doesn't want, and she confirms that is exactly it. The two board a train together as the night deepens. Asanagi insists that Mihara takes a seat while she remains standing, and he quietly thanks her as she checks her phone. Asanagi looks at her phone and explains that she's asking for advice because she made Mihara angry. Mihara feels overwhelmed as he listens to her. Asanagi reassures Mihara that Yuu isn't angry at all. She mentions that Yuu is actually worried about being too pushy. Mihara feels terrible thinking about how he ruined the mood and ran away earlier. Asanagi explains that Yuu knows he didn't mean to offend her. She shows him the text messages where Yuu expresses concern for him being alone. Mihara looks at the screen in silence. Asanagi continues by saying Yuu understands he felt drained and had enough fun for the day. Mihara stares at his hands and reflects on his feelings of wasting time. Asanagi mentions she has been talking about her hobbies for a year now and notes how difficult relationships are to manage. Mihara thinks about how it hurts to be cheered up when he feels low. Asanagi smiles and says that both she and Yuu are good girls. Mihara thinks to himself that it isn't that he dislikes group activities. Asanagi points out that he could have called her sooner, referencing her self-introduction back in April. Mihara watches her while they ride the train. Asanagi admits that having guy friends is embarrassing for her since she never had any before. Mihara thinks about how she has been looking out for him since the spring despite his suspicious appearance. Asanagi reaches out and pats Mihara's head, claiming there was something on it. Mihara remembers her effort to rewrite her introduction card and realizes why it had been crumpled when she finally gave it to him. Asanagi suggests that Mihara should get some sleep and promises to wake him up when they arrive. Mihara looks at Asanagi and quietly thanks her. Mihara closes his eyes to rest while Asanagi watches his reflection in the train window and thinks his first name. Mihara walks home on Friday night beating himself up over his poor choice of words and worrying about the future. He recalls Asanagi promising to help smooth things over when Monday comes. Monday arrives and Mihara imagines a scenario where he is publicly shamed for turning down Amami-san's invitation. He worries that his classmates will tell him to know his place. Mihara arrives at school on Monday morning, bracing himself to be completely ostracized by his peers. A classmate casually asks him if he has finished his homework yet. Amami calls out Mihara's name loudly. Amami stands in front of Mihara at the lockers and apologizes repeatedly for her actions on Friday. Amami clutches her head and calls herself an insensitive jerk, wondering why she acts that way. She admits she is selfish for assuming everyone she knows is her friend, while Mihara stands by silently. Amami mentions that Asanagi scolds her often for her behavior. Asanagi runs down the hallway toward them, calling out Amami's name. Asanagi tells Amami it is rude to bother Mihara so suddenly and suggests letting him reach his classroom first. Amami explains she wanted to apologize as soon as possible. Asanagi then offers an apology to Mihara for the disturbance. Mihara notes that Asanagi is currently in her model student mode and tells her it is okay. Asanagi insists that she is the one who needs to apologize to him. Mihara apologizes to the girls, stating that he should have phrased his words better on Friday. Amami asks Mihara if he is still angry and if he will forgive her. Mihara asks for her forgiveness as well and says he is sorry for giving her a bad memory. Amami joyfully hugs Asanagi and celebrates that Mihara isn't mad at her. Asanagi looks at Mihara and apologizes for the trouble Amami put him through. Mihara laughs nervously and thinks about how strange the current situation feels. Other students watch the interaction and comment on what a weird combination. The group is wondering if something happened between Amami and Mihara. Mihara notices the staring and thinks this is better than being ostracized. Amami explains that she considered calling Mihara's phone on Friday night but decided an in-person apology was best. Nearby students look on with confusion at the conversation. Mihara is stunned that Amami mentioned his phone number in public. Asanagi confirms to the others that she knows his number, leaving Mihara to realize the implications of their D-secret being exposed. The teacher enters the room and tells everyone to get to their seats. Amami tells Mihara there is one more thing she wanted to talk about. Amami says she will talk to Mihara later and heads off. Other girls ask Asanagi if Amami is close with him, and while she says she doesn't know, they note that the two are close enough to talk over the phone. Girls in the classroom gossip about the potential relationship. One notes that Amami is nice to everyone and is likely just trying to get to know Mihara better. Another student shouts in shock, asking if they are actually dating, and is immediately shushed by her peers. Students continue their discussion at their desks. A girl reasons that if Amami were dating someone, she would have told Asanagi immediately. Her friend agrees and concludes that the two probably aren't a couple after all. Mihara feels the weight of the unwanted attention and notes that while he isn't being ostracized, the situation is still uncomfortable. Nearby, Asanagi looks pensive and decides to try and get more information during recess. The school bell rings for the next break. Mihara realizes that the boys in the class are staring daggers at him. Amidst the tension, someone calls out his name. During the break, a group of girls surrounds Amami and demands she finish what she was saying earlier that morning. At the same time, Mihara is cornered by jealous boys who grill him about having Amami's phone number and spending time with her on Friday. They demand to know if they are close friends. At the start of the lunch break, Mihara stops by a vending machine. Amami suddenly pops up and asks if he has a moment to talk about something important. A group of girls spots Amami and rushes over to ask if she finally found a boyfriend. Simultaneously, Mihara is swamped by boys who want to know exactly how Amami sounds when she answers the phone. The school day comes to an end as the sun begins to set over the building. Mihara leans against a wall after school and checks his phone, frustrated that Asanagi has ignored all of his messages. Nearby, Amami is being dragged away by girls who are tired of her keeping secrets. She shouts for Yumi to help her as she is led away. Mihara hurries down the hallway, hoping to escape and get home before he is spotted again. He reflects on how much trouble exchanging numbers with Amami has caused him. Suddenly, Amami catches up and calls his name. Amami reaches out and firmly grabs Mihara's wrist to stop him from leaving. Amami takes off at a full sprint, dragging both a shocked Mihara and a surprised Asanagi along with her. Mihara and Asanagi exchange confused looks as they are pulled through the school grounds. Back at the school, a group of girls watches them go and realizes that both Yu and Yumi have completely disappeared into thin air. One of them comments on how slick the escape was. The scene shifts to a local bus stop standing quietly under the afternoon sky. Amami raises her arms in victory on the bus, celebrating that they successfully shook off the other students. Mihara and Asanagi sit beside her, both completely out of breath from the sprint. Mihara asks what is even happening. Amami explains that she couldn't talk to Mihara with everyone watching and insisted they find somewhere quiet. Mihara wonders why Asanagi was dragged along too, while Asanagi looks on with a blank expression. Asanagi complains that she didn't need to be included if Amami just wanted to talk to Mihara. Mihara notes that her straight-laced student mode feels incredibly cold and unfriendly. The bus travels through a familiar residential area. Asanagi asks where they are going and Amami admits she isn't sure since she just hopped on. Mihara notes to himself that he knows this road from his daily commute. Asanagi realizes they are near Mihara's house and asks him for confirmation. Mihara acknowledges that she is right. The group arrives at Mihara's home and enters. Emami and Asanagi announce themselves, with Asanagi lying that it is her first time visiting a boy's house. Mihara tells them to make themselves at home while internally questioning the situation. Asanagi asks to use the restroom and Mihara points her in the right direction. He realizes that Asanagi is acting like a stranger to his home because their friendship must remain a secret from Emami. Emami and Asanagi look around the living space and express their surprise. Mihara prepares coffee in the kitchen and asks if it is acceptable since he has nothing else to offer. Emami says she will gladly have some with sugar and milk. Mihara notes that the usual snacks are off limits today since they are meant for proper guests. Emami suggests that Mihara is likely good at house chores because he seems skilled with his hands. Asanagi pretends she has no way of knowing such a thing and maintains her distance. The trio sits down in the living room with their coffee. Asanagi gets straight to the point and asks exactly how and why Mihara and Emami exchanged phone numbers. Mihara and Emami both gulp nervously. Mihara looks at Asanagi and feels conflicted about what to say. He knows the real reason for the number exchange was to keep the fact that they watched Asanagi's confession a secret from her. Mihara panics as he thinks about the wild dating theories the other girls at school have come up with. He decides it is time to just confess the truth. Emami finally speaks up and admits that she and Nina were secretly watching when a senpai confessed to Asanagi. She explains that Mihara was only there by chance, and she asked him to keep it a secret so Asanagi wouldn't be angry. Asanagi listens with a neutral expression as Emami confirms that the confession was the only reason they talked aside from a brief encounter on Friday. Mihara remains silent during the explanation. Asanagi realizes what happened but points out that Emami essentially threatened him. Emami lets out a cry of shock as Asanagi stares her down. Asanagi asks why they were even peeping and says she would have told Emami if she had asked. Emami argues they were ready to help if the senior acted suspiciously. Asanagi sighs that their meddling is the real issue. Asanagi gives Emami a sharp flick on the forehead. Emami winces and clutches her head while Mihara watches from a distance. Asanagi explains that this is a punishment. She admits she isn't exactly angry but knows Emami was worried about overstepping. Asanagi declares that Emami is forgiven. Emami hugs her tightly and expresses her love while Mihara is sent flying backward in the confusion, wondering why he was hit. Emami offers an apology to Mihara for dragging him into the situation. Mihara accepts, noting that things feel much better now that everything has been confessed. The group begins to eat and drink. Emami remarks that keeping secrets is smothering. Mihara agrees and asks them both to keep their meeting here a secret from everyone at school. Mihara scratches his head and admits that he was the one who originally asked Asanagi to keep things a secret. Mihara thinks about how being seen with him makes people stare. He feels guilty that Asanagi had to endure those strange gazes today and worries about the weight it puts on her heart. Mihara tells Emami that she truly cares for her friends. Internally, he blames himself for being selfish while Emami happily eats a cookie. Emami smiles and says the same applies to him. Mihara reflects on how Asanagi was forced to keep a secret from her best friend even though he doesn't see himself as a close friend of hers yet. Emami recalls the events back at the arcade. She tells Mihara that he protected his friend in that moment. Emami notes that Mihara knows exactly what his friend likes and dislikes. She thanks him for turning down her invitation, acknowledging how difficult it must have been to do so in front of a large crowd. Mihara argues that his actions weren't that great and were mostly for his own sake. He admits that he genuinely enjoyed the time he spent with his friend. Mihara explains that being able to hang out and have fun like that is a very rare experience for him. He admits he was simply very happy. Emami watches him and speaks his name. Emami laughs and remarks that Mihara really likes that friend of his. Mihara and Asanagi both blush intensely. Asanagi hides her face behind her coffee cup while Mihara sweats nervously. Mihara stammers that it isn't exactly like that. Asanagi finishes her drink in the background with a flushed face. Mihara admits that it isn't wrong to see it that way and confirms that she is a precious friend to him. Emami watches him with a smile. Emami calls Mihara cute like a hamster, making him cough in embarrassment. Asanagi asks if Emami still had something she wanted to talk about while Nina notices that Asanagi's face is beet red. Emami clears her throat and addresses Mihara. Emami stands up and asks Mihara if he will please be her friend. Asanagi looks on in surprise. A title card marks the beginning of the next chapter. The next morning at school, Amami cheerfully greets Mihara by his first name and declares that today is a good day. Asanagi walks silently beside her. Mihara gives a hesitant response while appearing slightly uncomfortable. Mihara thinks to himself that things are heading in a weird direction. Nina asks Amami what that was about, and Amami explains she was just saying good morning to a friend. Mihara reflects on how he ended up saying yes to Amami's request because he couldn't find a reason to turn her down. Amami loudly invites Mihara to eat lunch together. Mihara feels like he is sticking out like a sore thumb as the other boys stare and wonder why she likes him. Mihara tries to ask Uyama where their physical education class is going to be held for the day. Uyama ignores the question and walks away without saying a word. Mihara realizes that now his classmates won't even reply to normal questions. Mihara checks a message from Asanagi apologizing for their princess. He groans in frustration and wonders what to do, realizing he is becoming a total loner at school. Someone discovers a secluded outdoor seating area on the school grounds and lets out a cry of pure excitement. Amami is thrilled with the discovery and wonders if it used to be a smoking area. She asks Mihara if he found this spot all by himself. Mihara admits that searching for nice spots is a hobby of his, prompting Amami to compare him to a cat. Amami invites Asanagi to join them and Mihara agrees it is fine. While they eat, Amami asks Mihara if he always prepares his own lunch. He says he does when time permits, otherwise he just buys some bread. Mihara describes how he makes batch meals from leftovers, leading Amami to joke that he has more girl power than they do. She is shocked to learn from Asanagi that he can even make sweets. Amami eagerly asks what he makes, and Mihara mentions he has been practicing banana soufflé pancakes. The thought of the treats causes Amami to swoon with anticipation. Mihara insists that following recipes makes it easy, while Amami falls into a slump because she fails even when she tries. Asanagi snaps her out of it and asks Mihara when he usually finds the time to bake. Mihara explains that his baking sessions usually happen spontaneously whenever he gets hungry and realizes he has ingredients like bananas and flour on hand. The girls are stunned that he doesn't just go to a convenience store like a normal person. Amami crouches down and begs Mihara to make her some pancakes in the near future. Mihara mentions he might still have some bananas left, which prompts Amami to immediately ask if she can visit his house today. He is caught off guard but gives his consent. Amami grabs Mihara's hands in excitement and begs him to make the pancakes. Asanagi asks if it is okay if she joins the visit too, and Mihara agrees. Amami shouts her thanks while enthusiastically grabbing their hands. Asanagi looks on with a quieter, more thoughtful expression as she watches Amami's excitement. Amami runs off to buy some tea, leaving Mihara and Asanagi alone at the table. Asanagi asks him once more if he is really okay with them coming over, and he confirms that he is. Asanagi smiles softly to herself and tells Mihara that Yuu is a truly good girl. Mihara agrees that Yuu is a good girl. Asanagi admits she always thought of her as energetic but now thinks she is a lot like a puppy. Mihara agrees with the comparison. Asanagi mentions that she almost burst out laughing at the thought. Mihara remains quiet as he looks away. Asanagi looks at Mihara and asks if people at school are currently harassing him. He is surprised by her sudden question. Mihara notes that Yuu doesn't really seem to care about how the people around her react to things. Mihara explains that he has always been an outlier and notes that he never really gets bullied directly. Asanagi is glad to hear that and tells him to reach out if something ever goes wrong. Mihara laughs it off, mentioning that Amami-san is considered the cutest girl in school. Asanagi looks at him with a questioning expression and asks what he means by his comment. Mihara quickly clarifies that it is just what everyone else at school is saying, adding that even an outlier like him is aware of her reputation. Mihara thinks to himself about how Amami-san is widely considered the #1 cutest girl. He continues his internal thought, remembering that the #2 spot belongs to Asanagi. Mihara tells Asanagi that it is just a bunch of boys messing around and that she shouldn't overthink the rankings. Asanagi questions if that is really the case. Asanagi looks down and states that even from her perspective as a girl, Yuu has always been extremely cute. Mihara begins to respond but hesitates. Asanagi clarifies that Yuu is cute both inside and out. Mihara watches her as she speaks. Asanagi tells Mihara that she is sure he will end up liking Yuu before long. The two sit together in the quiet outdoor area of the school. Amami comes running back to the spot and apologizes for keeping them waiting. Mihara watches her approach with a stunned expression. Asanagi watches Amami and wonders if her feelings for Mihara are truly just those of a friend. In the locker room, Nina asks Amami why she has suddenly developed an interest in Mihara. Amami enthusiastically replies that he is simply a very nice person as she gets dressed. She explains that he possesses his own set of principles and is different from the other boys. Amami adds that while he is kind, the real reason she is drawn to him is because he actually listens to her. Amami tells Asanagi that Mihara actually looks her in the eye and pays attention when she speaks. She happily notes that in that specific way he is just like Yumi. Asanagi looks away and gives a small, silent smile. Mihara stands in the kitchen wearing an apron and holding a mixing bowl, feeling a bit out of place. Asanagi asks about the cost of the ingredients, but Mihara tells her they are just leftovers. He asks them to wait in the other room and play a game while he finishes admitting that being watched is embarrassing. Mihara tells the girls he just needs to bake the mixture and urges them to go play. Amami is excited to find a box of nostalgic games and declares that she wants to help. Amami holds up a game case and asks Yumi if she remembers playing it together. She wonders if Yumi still knows how to play after so long, and Yumi agrees to give it a shot. Mihara walks into the room and announces that the pancakes are finally ready. Mihara is shocked to see Yumi's game character stomping on Amami's. Amami demands a rematch, frustrated that she is losing at a game she originally taught to Yumi. Mihara presents the pancakes to an excited Amami. He asks Yumi when she became such a skilled gamer, and she explains she has been trying out her brother's games lately. Amami is amazed by how soft the pancake is and asks Yumi if it is crazy. Yumi agrees that it tastes great as they eat together at the table. Mihara explains that the sweetness comes from the banana, making it low in calories, and adds that it can be eaten with syrup. Amami says that the treat makes her feel much better. Amami looks at her recipe and admits she cannot bake even with instructions because she struggles with managing temperatures. Yumi tells her that she is just sloppy when it comes to those kinds of things. Amami asks Yumi if she made charcoal for Valentine's last year. Yumi corrects her, stating they were cocoa-flavored charcoal cookies, while Mihara listens to their conversation. Amami explains that they only exchanged gifts because it was an all-girls school and notes that it was fun. Yumi looks on silently. Mihara realizes that both girls attended Takabana all-girls school through middle school. Mihara wonders why they chose to go to a different high school since Takabana is a famous institution for high-class ladies. Amami suggests playing the next game together. Mihara whispers to Yumi and asks her to hold back a bit this time, and she says she understands. The game becomes intense with explosions on the screen. Mihara and Yumi stare at the monitor in shock at the high-speed action. Amami asks Mihara if it is really his first time playing this game. He confirms it is and mentions that it has been a long time since he played on a console. Amami says that she wanted to catch up with the two of them and admits she understands things better now. Mihara tells the girls he is already out of the game and will just watch them play. Amami taunts Yumi's character to come and catch her while Yumi gets annoyed. Yumi focuses on the controller and notes that Amami only picked her character and weapon based on their looks. Amami calls out the button inputs she is using while Mihara wishes them luck. A massive move is triggered in the game and Amami shouts as the character performs a powerful attack. Mihara is stunned and says he has never seen that specific move before. Amami explains she just discovered the input and demonstrates the sequence again after Mihara asks to see the secret command. Amami enthusiastically explains the game's controls, pointing out exactly how to move and aim. Mihara is still left feeling confused by the explanation while Yumi watches silently. Amami admits her explanation wasn't very clear and tells Mihara he should try it himself. Mihara laughs awkwardly while Yumi remains seated on the floor nearby. Amami thanks Mihara for the invitation and the food as she and Yumi prepare to leave. Mihara asks if they know their way home, and Amami cheerfully confirms before saying they will see each other at school tomorrow. Mihara lets out a tired sigh after the door closes behind his guests. He reflects on how amazing Amami is and realizes that she is just as cheerful in private as she is at school. He thinks about how lively Amami was and how skilled she is at video games. Mihara realizes that they spent so much time together that the day flew by before he even noticed. Mihara remembers sitting at the table with Yumi earlier that day. They had snacks while he felt slightly drained from the social interaction. Mihara admits to himself that he is completely exhausted and slumps down onto the floor. He feels the full weight of the day's events as he tries to catch his breath. Outside, the sky begins to darken as a sudden realization causes someone to shout in alarm. Amami stops in her tracks while walking home with Yumi and explains that she forgot to ask Mihara something. Yumi turns back to ask what is wrong. Amami looks at her phone and says she wants to return the favor since Mihara treated her today. She admits she might not be able to cook anything herself but considers treating him to a meal instead. Yumi flatly tells Amami that she will not be joining her the next time she visits Mihara. Amami is visibly shocked by her friend's sudden refusal. Yumi continues walking and tells Amami that she will be perfectly fine without her there. Yumi points out that Amami genuinely wants to become better friends with Mihara. She keeps her back turned as they continue their way home. Amami's phone rings and she answers it with a slight apology. She sounds a bit hesitant as she listens to the person on the other end of the line. Amami asks Mihara over the phone if he is free this coming Friday. Nearby, Yumi walks along with a serious expression on her face as she listens to her friend make the request. Asanagi asks if he is free while Amami finishes her phone call and says her goodbyes. Amami tells Asanagi that he already has plans for that day. Asanagi wonders if he is busy every Friday and Amami explains that he said it is difficult to find free time on that day, which leaves Asanagi shocked. Asanagi suddenly realizes she forgot her smartphone and assumes it is probably back at Mihara's place. Asanagi says she will go back to get it herself and tells Amami that she doesn't need to come along. Asanagi runs back toward the apartment building with a determined and flushed expression on her face. Inside his apartment, Mihara is washing dishes when the doorbell rings. He calls out that he is coming and heads toward the entrance. Asanagi stands at the door, panting and blushing as she waits for someone to answer. Mihara opens the door and is surprised to see Asanagi standing there again. Mihara asks if she forgot something while Asanagi looks at him with a very red face. Without saying a word, Asanagi reaches out and gives Mihara's nose a firm pinch. Mihara is completely stunned by the sudden gesture while Asanagi continues to stare at him with a blushing face. Asanagi suddenly shouts that she will see him tomorrow and takes off, leaving Mihara confused. Mihara stands in the doorway blushing and sweating as he gives a hesitant reply. Asanagi sprints away down the street while Mihara is left at the apartment clutching his nose in total bewilderment. A view of the apartment building appears with the arrival of Friday. Mihara excitedly shows Asanagi a new book he just acquired. Asanagi is shocked to see it because she didn't think it was out yet. Asanagi asks how he got it when the official release isn't until the day after tomorrow. Mihara explains that a nearby bookstore had it on sale early. Asanagi asks to read it, and Mihara suggests they read it together, which she happily accepts. The two sit side by side and begin reading the book. Both of them are completely focused on the pages. Mihara becomes acutely aware of how close they are sitting to one another. Mihara finds it impossible to focus on the story because Asanagi smells so good. Sensing his distraction, Asanagi asks if she smells bad, but Mihara quickly denies it. An hour later, both Mihara and Asanagi are crying over the story's emotional conclusion. Asanagi uses a tissue to blow her nose while Mihara stares at the book in a daze. Asanagi remarks that it was a great happy ending. Mihara agrees that the noble path taken by the characters was the right choice. Mihara slumps over and admits he is too emotionally drained to do anything else today. Asanagi suggests they calm down before talking about the book any further, noting that her head hurts from the intensity of the story. Mihara lies on the ground and asks Asanagi what is on her mind. She looks down at him with a quiet, pleasant smile. Asanagi tells him it is nothing while maintaining her happy expression. Asanagi asks to borrow the previous volumes of the series so she can reread the whole story from the beginning. Mihara agrees and the two spend more time reading in silence. Mihara stretches and realizes that they haven't spoken a word for an entire hour. He calls out to Asanagi to see how she is doing. Mihara's eyes go wide with surprise as he looks toward his bed. Mihara sees that Asanagi has fallen fast asleep on his bed while still holding the book she was reading. Mihara stands back and watches Asanagi in silence as she sleeps peacefully on his bed. Mihara watches Asanagi while she is fast asleep on his bed and thinks about the fact that she is sleeping. Mihara is taken aback as he realizes that she is actually snoring as she sleeps. Mihara thinks to himself that she is acting way more relaxed than someone in her position should be. Mihara eventually drifts off to sleep as well. Suddenly, he hears a voice telling him to wake up. The voice calls out his name and Mihara begins to snap out of his sleep. Mihara rubs his eyes and apologizes to Asanagi for falling asleep too. He then realizes that someone else is speaking to him. Mihara is hit with a sudden wave of shock as he sees who is in the room. Mihara's mother stands in the doorway with a stern expression looking at the two of them. Mihara remains frozen while Asanagi continues to sleep soundly behind him. Mihara's mother leans in close and tells him that he had better have a very good explanation for what is happening. Mihara nervously agrees. Later both Mihara and Asanagi sit on the floor and apologize profusely. Mihara's mother claims that everything is the fault of her stupid son while the teenagers express their deep regret. Mihara's mother talks on the phone in the background while Asanagi offers another apology for sleeping like a log. Mihara asks if she was truly that exhausted. Mihara's mother finishes her call and tells Yumi-chan that she should just stay the night since it is already so late. She mentions that she already received permission from the girl's mother. Asanagi tries to refuse to avoid being a trouble, but Mihara's mother insists it is fine. Mihara's mother tells Mihara he will accompany Asanagi home tomorrow and reminds Asanagi to apologize to her own mother. Mihara listens with a serious face. Asanagi apologizes once more and suggests she will sleep on the sofa. Mihara's mother tells her not to do that because the sofa is too uncomfortable to sleep on. Mihara's mother heads off to find some pajamas for Asanagi and tells her she can take the first bath. Mihara insists that Asanagi takes his bed while he sleeps on the sofa or the floor, and she eventually agrees. Mihara's mother watches Asanagi hesitate with the pajamas in her hands. Mihara tells her to please go ahead. Asanagi bows deeply and thanks Mihara's mother. His mother walks away as Mihara looks on silently. Mihara's mother suddenly grabs his head and calls out his name. He is terrified as she glares at him with a menacing smile. Mihara's mother sits on the sofa and mentions she noticed his room being cleaner than usual on Fridays. She asks him how long he has been bringing Yumi-chan over. Mihara sits on the floor and asks her to watch her phrasing. Mihara explains that Asanagi is just a friend and they aren't doing anything questionable. His mother says she trusts him but reminds him that since Yumi-chan is a girl he needs to be much more careful. Mihara quietly agrees and apologizes to his mother. Mihara vows that he will definitely apologize to Asanagi's mother tomorrow. Mihara's mother teases him about wanting to touch Yumi-chan's cheek while she slept. Mihara turns red and shouts that he would never do such a thing. Mihara's mother continues to tease him, claiming he thought a touch on the cheek would be fine. He vehemently denies it, but she says he has always been easy for her to read. Asanagi shyly peeks back into the room in her borrowed pajamas. She quietly admits that she doesn't know where to find a towel. Mihara's mother apologizes and goes to help her. Mihara desperately tries to tell Asanagi that she is mistaken and he would never do what his mother suggested. Mihara grumbles about the situation being a huge mess while he prepares a new futon for himself. Mihara's mother comments on the freshly hung futon. Mihara stays on the floor fastidiously using a lint roller to clean the carpet. Mihara thinks about how his mother is right and Asanagi is indeed a girl. He reflects on her reputation at school as a smart, upright, and beautiful girl that everyone admires. Mihara admits that while her public image is perfect, she also has a side that whines when losing games, loves junk food, and makes strange noises in her sleep. Mihara sweats as he reflects on the fact that Asanagi is a girl and he is a boy. Asanagi peeks into the room while Mihara frantically shouts that he is still finishing the preparations. Asanagi tells Mihara that he doesn't need to do so much work. Mihara looks around nervously and hopes that she stays away from his closet. Asanagi enters the room wearing Mihara's oversized sweatshirt and mentions how cozy it feels. Mihara remains on the floor and awkwardly tells her it is fine that she borrowed it. Mihara asks if his mother is currently bathing, and Asanagi confirms she is. Asanagi remembers being told not to stay in the same room as him, so Mihara suggests they move to the living room. Asanagi jokingly promises to scream if Mihara attacks her, prompting him to shout a denial. Mihara worries about his mother finishing her bath soon and urges Asanagi to leave, but she tells him to come over to the bed instead. Asanagi pats the mattress and gives Mihara permission to sit next to her. He hesitates and points out that the bed actually belongs to him. Asanagi smirks and claims the bed is hers for the night before telling Mihara once more to sit down. Mihara eventually gives in and sits beside her while trying to remain considerate. Mihara is confused when Asanagi laughs and remarks that he lured her in with Manga and now she is spending the night. Asanagi leans her head on her hand and playfully calls Mihara a bad boy. Mihara retorts that the situation is her fault for falling asleep. Asanagi looks at him and asks if they are both being bad kids. Asanagi giggles and calls them delinquents. Mihara grips the bedsheets and says there is something he has been wondering about. Mihara asks Asanagi if she still plans on keeping their friendship a secret from Amami. Asanagi falls silent and looks ahead with a serious expression. Mihara asks if he should finally tell Yuu about them. He admits that he was the one who originally wanted to keep it a secret and notes that she has simply been going along with his request. Mihara admits he thought he was being selfish and apologizes. Asanagi listens quietly as he continues his thought. Mihara explains that it makes him feel sad when they have to keep their distance from each other while they are together in public. Mihara trails off for a moment, struggling to find the right words to express his feelings. Asanagi looks at Mihara and simply agrees with his sentiment. Asanagi smiles warmly and notes that keeping their distance really does feel sad. Mihara looks at her in surprise. Mihara says he will leave the decision of when to tell Yuu up to Asanagi. He laughs and worries about getting a flick on the head for the secret, but Asanagi promises to tell her best friend when the time is right. Asanagi looks at Mihara and realizes that the same feeling of sadness applies to her as well. Mihara hears his mother finish her bath and panics about needing to leave the room immediately. Asanagi reassures him she wants Snoop, but asks to say one more thing before he goes. Asanagi sits on the bed and softly wishes Mihara a good night. Mihara stammers as he returns the good night wish while blushing intensely. Mihara shuts the bedroom door and slumps against it in the hallway, thinking to himself that he probably won't be sleeping much tonight. Saturday arrives and Asanagi leads a very fidgety Mihara to the entrance of her home. Asanagi sneakily peeks inside the front door and announces her return. Her mother greets her from inside. Asanagi tells Mihara to come in while he follows behind her, sweating with nerves. Asanagi's mother introduces herself as the mother of the bad girl. Mihara immediately performs a deep bow and apologizes for everything that happened. Asanagi's mother tells Mihara there is no need to worry because the whole situation is Yumi's fault. She admits she meant to wake her daughter up but ended up falling asleep as well. Asanagi looks disgruntled and points out that she has been apologizing since yesterday. Asanagi's mother argues that a simple apology isn't enough. She notes that Yumi was only lucky because Mihara and Misaki-san are kind people, warning that she would have been in big trouble otherwise. Her mother asks if she understands, and Asanagi bows her head while agreeing. Mihara and Asanagi both bow deeply toward her mother. Mihara apologizes and promises to be more careful next time, and Asanagi vows to do the same. Asanagi's mother gives a pleasant smile and says that their response is good enough for now. Her mother asks Yumi what she wants for breakfast, and Yumi settles for fruit. She then tells Mihara he can eat with them as well, and he gratefully accepts the offer. Asanagi notes that her father has already left for work, and her brother is still sleeping since it is the weekend. Mihara realizes he won't be meeting the rest of the family today. Mihara looks at Asanagi and says he will have to introduce himself to her father and brother another time. Asanagi gives him a bright smile and agrees that they can do it next time. Asanagi's mother echoes the sentiment and smiles at the idea of a next time. Her mother teases them about the assumption that there will be a next time while the two teenagers are mesmerized by a plate of fresh peaches. Mom mentions she never expected Yumi to bring a boy home and was shocked when Maki's mother called. Yumi frantically tells her mother not to say anything to the people at Yuu's place. Mihara realizes that their families are quite close and assumes Yuu would find out eventually. Asanagi's mother then turns her attention back to Mihara. Asanagi's mother leans in and asks Mihara to explain exactly how he and Yumi first got to know each other. Mihara is surprised by the direct question. Asanagi's mother mentions that Yumi used to talk about her new friend but would never answer any specific questions. She laughs and says she finally understands that Yumi was just embarrassed because he is actually her boyfriend, which leaves Asanagi flustered and annoyed. Asanagi tells Mihara he doesn't need to explain anything and insists they should just focus on eating the peaches. Her mother notes that it is rare to see her daughter take charge like that. Asanagi struggles with a peach, complaining that it is getting mushy as she tries to peel it. Mihara offers to take over for her since the skin is difficult to remove. Mihara expertly prepares the fruit in the kitchen while Asanagi watches closely. Her mother observes them from the table and compliments Mihara on his skill. The group enjoys the snack together. Asanagi mentions how great it would be if they could do this again another time while her mother smiles at the suggestion. Mihara reflects on the possibility of a future visit and hopes that he can eventually call himself Asanagi's friend with more pride. The scene shifts back to school as the bell rings for class. The teacher announces that the school will be holding a cultural festival next month and plans to select the committee members today. She explains that they need one boy and one girl to attend student committee meetings and handle the organization of equipment and materials. Mihara listens from his desk with a neutral expression. The teacher calls for volunteers, but the rest of the class grumbles about how much of a hassle the role sounds like. Having anticipated the lack of interest, the teacher reveals a lottery box she prepared specifically for this situation. Mihara is filled with dread as he recalls his bad luck with lotteries in the past. The teacher instructs the boys to come forward and draw their lots. Mihara draws a slip of paper and unfolds it to find the word jackpot written inside a heart. The teacher confirms that Mihara has been chosen as the boy for the committee and tells him she is counting on him. Mihara is overcome with gloom while the teacher moves on to select a girl from the class. Other boys in the class express their relief at being skipped, citing upcoming sports tournaments and busy schedules. Mihara slumps over and wonders if he is genuinely cursed. Mihara tries to rationalize that it is better for someone like him who isn't in a club to take the role. However, he still feels depressed about the heavy workload and the likelihood of being left alone on the day of the festival. Suddenly, someone whispers his name. Amami shouts with excitement that she cannot wait for the cultural festival. Mihara watches her from his desk while Nina stands behind her. Mihara thinks to himself that Amami seems like exactly the type of person who would enjoy the cultural festival. Amami giggles and admits she really loves festivals while Nina notes that she predicted her reaction. Amami enthusiastically suggests that she and Mihara should explore the festival together if he is free. Mihara gives a nervous blushing agreement. Several other boys in the class huddle together and whisper to each other as they watch the interaction. Amami tells Asanagi that she knows being on the festival committee will be a lot of work and asks for her help if she ends up being chosen. Asanagi agrees while Mihara thinks about how difficult things must be for the girls. The whispering boys continue their gossip, remarking that whoever is chosen will have super bad luck because they will have to cover for Mihara. One of them wonders aloud if he would even be able to speak during a meeting. The classroom is filled with the loud laughter of the other students mocking Mihara's social skills. Nina glares at Mihara and asks what is wrong with him, calling him a cocky brat for supposedly having a crush on Yu. Asanagi watches the exchange with a dark, unreadable expression. Mihara clenches his fist in frustration and admits to himself that what they are saying is true. A group of girls celebrates that they weren't picked for the committee. Mihara watches them and reflects on how he doesn't really have a presence in the classroom anyway. Mihara keeps his head down while the class continues to laugh, trying to tell himself that he is safe from further scrutiny. Nina looks at her lot with a worried expression, finding the atmosphere in the room to be overwhelming. Mihara continues to dwell on his perceived uselessness in the class. Nina tells Amami that it is her turn to draw from the lottery, which catches her off guard. Amami steps forward to take her turn at the front of the classroom. As Amami prepares to draw her lot, the teacher watches her from behind the desk. Mihara thinks about how he doesn't even attempt to socialize with the rest of the class. Someone calls for attention with a sharp shout of "Hey!" while a hand slams down onto a desk. Amami glares at the rest of the class with a look of pure fury. Amami stands at the teacher's podium and asks the other students if they all hate Mihara-kun for some reason. The classroom falls completely silent. Mihara looks at Amami in total shock while she continues to stare down her classmates. Amami clenches her fists and states that she has been watching them for a while now. She points out that they have been doing nothing but talking trash and even blaming Mihara for things he never did, demanding to know if he actually did anything wrong. Amami suddenly calls out to the teacher and declares that she will step up for the class committee after all. Asanagi tries to speak up, but Amami tells her it is okay. Amami explains that she only hesitated earlier because she lacked confidence, but she firmly states that she wants to work with Mihara-kun. Mihara stands at his desk, still unable to believe what is happening. The teacher admits it is better to have someone who is actually interested in the role and asks Mihara if he is okay with this change. He struggles to find an immediate answer. Asanagi raises her hand and casually announces that she actually hit the jackpot by drawing the winning lot for the girls. Nina bursts out laughing in surprise while Amami is left completely speechless by the revelation. Nina notes that this is just like Asanagi to have such luck. Asanagi tells Amami that she is fine with taking the role herself, but asks what they should do now that Amami has already publicly committed to it. Amami is visibly flustered and realizes she can't easily take back her words. Asanagi tells Amami to calm down a bit. She says she understands her feelings but points out that she is getting a little too worked up over the situation. The rest of the class remains in a tense, awkward silence as they watch the drama unfold at the front of the room. Amami begins to apologize to Asanagi, but her friend tells her that she shouldn't be saying those things to her. Amami realizes her mistake and goes quiet. Amami turns to the rest of the class and bows deeply, offering a sincere apology for suddenly lashing out. She explains that because it is a class event, she simply wanted to ensure that everyone involved would be able to enjoy themselves. Nina encourages Asanagi to do her best on the committee and offers her support. Asanagi smiles and says she is looking forward to it. The teacher confirms that the committee will consist of Mihara and Asanagi before ordering everyone back to their seats. The classroom becomes busy as students move their desks. Asanagi places a hand on Amami's shoulder and tells her to cheer up. Asanagi reassures Yuu that she didn't do anything wrong. Yuu listens in silence with a distant look in her eyes. Yuu offers apologies to Nina and Nozomi, but they tell her not to worry about it. Yuu remains quiet as she looks ahead. Asanagi approaches Mihara and asks if he is free after school. She tells him that he is an amazing person. The two sit down to go over the upcoming schedule. Asanagi asks if he only just realized the gravity of the situation, and Mihara admits he was somewhat aware. Asanagi leans her head on her hand and admits she appreciates the praise, but argues that all she did was win a lottery. She insists that Yuu was the one who was truly impressive. Asanagi reflects on how Yuu got angry for the sake of a friend despite the social risk. She believes she was only covering the necessary bases. Asanagi thinks about how pure Yuu is, noting she acts just like a heroine from a television drama. Mihara looks at Asanagi and admits that he isn't capable of doing something like that. Asanagi picks up her school bag and mentions the student council meeting tomorrow. She suggests they figure out the class activity the day after tomorrow, and Mihara agrees. Asanagi tells Mihara to take things slow and says goodbye until tomorrow. Mihara watches her leave and wonders if Asanagi is feeling down. He apologizes internally for the homeroom session being such a mess because of him. Mihara clenches his fist and resolves to do his best and give the task his all. Yuu watches him with a surprised expression. Asanagi asks Yuu why she didn't just go home as they discussed, but Yuu catches up and firmly grabs her arm to stop her. Yuu sincerely thanks Asanagi for today, admitting that she likely would have said something even more hurtful to the class if Asanagi hadn't stopped her. Asanagi is surprised she waited just to say that. Asanagi playfully pinches Yuu's cheek while telling her she's absolutely right to be thankful. Yuu argues that even if Mihara isn't the best with people, it still isn't okay for the class to leave him all alone. Asanagi agrees that her friend's point should be obvious. Asanagi tells Yuu that she is actually the one who should be saying thank you, which leaves Yuu wondering why. Asanagi notes how annoying it is when people complain about school events. Yuu enthusiastically agrees and encourages her to keep talking about it as they walk together. Yuu looks at Asanagi with a bright smile and tells her she was just like a prince back then. Asanagi gives a soft smile and admits it has been quite a while since she last heard herself described that way. Yuu excitedly suggests they go grab some ice cream together on the walk home, but Asanagi points out that the weather has been getting much colder lately. Mihara stands at the front of the classroom to lead the discussion on what project the class should take on for the upcoming festival. The students immediately start shouting out their own suggestions, ranging from selling casellas to building a giant maze or a haunted house. Mihara is stunned by how much the mood in the room has improved compared to just 2 days ago. Asanagi notes that the positive change is entirely thanks to Yuu's influence. Mihara realizes that Yuu is the type of person who moves on from unpleasantness quickly, which allowed her to naturally rebuild the festive spirit in the class. Asanagi is amazed that her friend isn't holding a grudge and jokingly wonders if she's just an airhead. Yuu pushes for the class to run a maid cafe while other students suggest a broader cosplay cafe to include more variety. Mihara tries to maintain order as the class gets increasingly overexcited about the possibilities. Mihara delivers the news from the student council meeting that their class has been assigned to do a regular exhibit because so many other classes wanted to open shops. He explains that the seniors were given priority choice, leaving his classmates to groan in disappointment, while Asanagi offers him some encouragement. Asanagi explains that the class will be making posters or decorating the school with stained glass on the rooftop. She asks if anyone else would like to their own ideas. The rest of the class sighs with disappointment because they wanted to run a shop. One boy leans on his hand and thinks that decorating might not be that bad after all. Mihara hesitantly raises his hand to get Asanagi's attention while she watches him. Mihara says he has a suggestion, and Asanagi enthusiastically encourages him to go ahead and it. The class eventually settles on Mihara's proposal as their final project for the festival. Mihara suggests they create pixel art using empty cans, arguing that it won't require much of a budget and will be easy to coordinate among the students. Asanagi agrees as they look through reference materials together. Mihara notes that they need to gather a lot of cans and offers to ask around his apartment building. Asanagi thinks the rooftop is a great opportunity because the exhibit will be visible as soon as anyone enters the school gate. Asanagi teases Mihara for being so raring to go now despite looking like a lamb led to the slaughter only moments ago. Mihara points out that their school has exhibit rankings and suggests they should aim to be the winners. Mihara admits to himself that he isn't usually ambitious, but he feels he can't let the class fail after Asanagi and Yu covered for him. Mihara focuses on his work and resolves to do his absolute best for the project. Asanagi watches Mihara and finds his sudden determination quite remarkable. Mihara notes that the others have lost some motivation because they feel like they've just become background characters by only making decorations. Asanagi laughs at his comment. Mihara looks at her and states that in reality there are no background or main characters at all. Asanagi rests her head on her hand and listens as Mihara explains that everyone is simply doing their best in their own way. Asanagi tells Mihara that he really is amazing. She jokingly asks if he only just realized it, and he gives a small laugh. Yu and Nina burst into the room to greet Mihara and Asanagi. Yu calls them by their names while Nina casually addresses Mihara as the class representative. Yu presents a large bag of empty cans they collected from the school cafeteria. Mihara is shocked that they have already started, and Asanagi asks if they weren't supposed to. Mihara explains that they have secured an empty classroom for storage. He notes how quickly Yu and the others are working as they head out again. Asanagi sits quietly at a desk and watches the others with a small, fond smile. Yu's earlier declaration that she hit the jackpot echoes through the classroom. The lottery slip is unfolded once again in a quiet memory. Asanagi stares out the window and questions why she can never be truly honest with herself. Nina talks to Mihara at his desk. Mihara looks away and wonders if she actually remembers his real name. The class begins the festival preparations in earnest. Yu proudly introduces herself as the Minister of Color Separation while showing off the supplies they gathered. Yu gives out directions for sorting colors while Mihara thinks about how she manages to look cute even while surrounded by trash. Nina tells him to stop staring and get back to work. Mihara works on a pixel art design based on a reference image. He worries that he is just copying existing art, but decides that the result is good enough. Asanagi admits she is glad they settled on a specific character theme, even though she didn't think it would be popular with the girls. Mihara points out it was chosen by a vote, and Asanagi defensively claims she isn't personally into it. Mihara goes over the technical steps of the project, including color distribution and linking the cans. Suddenly, Yu calls out for Asanagi from the doorway while holding more bags. Mihara asks Yu what she is doing there. She announces that she has some breaking news reporting that many of the cans they collected are filled with cigarette butts. Mihara looks into the collection of bags while Yu gets excited about finding a manga magazine among the trash. Mihara suggests they at least wash out the juice cans to keep things clean. Asanagi scolds Yu for slacking off to read, but Yu just giggles and says she's just taking a tiny break. Yu asks if they are going to use the art from the magazine for their project and asks if the blueprint is ready. Mihara says it isn't finished yet, so Yu asks if she can try drawing it herself. Mihara is surprised and asks why she wants to draw it when he already has a sketch mostly finished. Mihara is left completely confused by Yu's sudden burst of energy. Mihara questions if Yu is even any good at drawing. She admits she isn't sure but says she just had a great idea and immediately starts sketching with a marker. Yu finishes her drawing in record time, leaving both Mihara and Asanagi in shock. Asanagi can't believe she did it in one try using only a marker. Asanagi decides they definitely have to use Yu's drawing. Mihara is stunned because Yu only just saw the character for the first time, while she admitted she doesn't even usually like that kind of manga. Asanagi asks Mihara to handle the coloring and final touches. Yu worries about her own role as the color separation minister, but Asanagi tells her to just leave that work to Nina. Asanagi heads off to make a photocopy of the sketch for safety. Yu stands alone and wonders if she actually managed to help the team at all. Yu apologizes to Mihara for making things so chaotic earlier and feels bad for pushing all the responsibilities onto Asanagi. Mihara watches her with a surprised look. Yu continues to apologize for being a source of trouble. Mihara looks at her and realizes that Asanagi still hasn't kept their promise to tell Yu about their secret friendship. Yu frantically insists that Asanagi is actually very kind and not scary at all. Mihara confirms to himself that the secret is still safe. Yu explains that they have been close since elementary school and declares that Asanagi is her prince. She recalls being surprised when Asanagi suddenly chose a different high school than expected. Yu admits she worked extremely hard to study so she could follow Asanagi to this school. Mihara is taken aback by how sudden the decision must have been. Yu explains that back in junior high, their group of 4 always went everywhere together. She notes that Yumi kept everything a secret until that autumn. Yu admits she was worried she would never get to experience a school festival with her friend again. She expresses how truly happy she is to be here right now. Mihara looks back and remembers his first impression of the 2 girls. He recalls seeing them together and assuming they were the closest of best friends. Mihara confesses to himself that he was actually jealous of their bond and wanted a similar friendship for himself. A sudden rustling sound breaks the silence of his thoughts. A rough sketch of a character is revealed on a piece of paper. Asanagi stands by the copy machine as it rattles while printing copies of the drawing. A classmate calls out to Asanagi to get her attention. Several girls gather around and ask if the sketch is finished. They are blown away by how good the drawing looks and offer their praise. Asanagi clarifies that Yu was actually the one who drew it. The girls laugh and call Yu a talented monster who can do anything except study. Asanagi and her classmate look at each other in silence for a moment. The girl thanks Asanagi for what happened during homeroom earlier. She tells her that she is the only person who can really handle Yu-chan when she gets carried away. The classmate insists that the 2 of them are a perfect set and that Yu needs her. Asanagi tries to brush it off as untrue, but the girl tells her she doesn't have to be so shy. Yu wails about losing sleep over the project. Asanagi sits with her and promises to help with the finishing touches, reminding her that is what she is there for. Yu remarks that painting together makes her feel like they are back in grade school. She then brings up the upcoming school festival. Yu happily announces that Sani-chan and Manhwa-san promised to come visit them at the festival. Yumi realizes that this will be the first time they have all been together since their graduation. Yumi simply confirms that she is right with a quiet response. Yu remembers a time from her childhood when she told Yumi-chan how much she liked her. While lying in bed together, Yu confesses that Yumi-chan is truly the most important person in her life. The next morning at school, both girls look completely exhausted but announce that the blueprint for the project is finally finished. Their classmates are impressed by the result. Mihara notices how tired they look and asks if they are getting enough sleep, even suggesting they cancel their karaoke plans for the day. Yu insists she is fine and still wants to go. Mihara checks his phone and sees a message from Yumi saying she will skip karaoke and leave it to Yu. He thinks to himself that Yu seems to be handling the workload well enough. Mihara sends a text telling Asanagi she did a great job. She playfully asks for more praise, and when he calls her the best, she can't help but let out a small laugh at her desk. Mihara sends another message reminding her that even though it is Friday, she shouldn't overwork herself and needs to go home to rest. As Mihara walks home, he promises over text to finish the pixel art on Saturday and send the file. Asanagi sends a cute sticker in response and says she will pass the message along to Yu. Mihara reflects on how long it has been since he spent a Friday evening alone like this. He looks at the detailed work on his computer screen and realizes how much effort it requires. Mihara sits at his table and works on the pixel art, noting that he has to color each section along the grid while keeping track of the count. He admits to himself that the task is far more complicated than it looks. The hours pass by as the clock ticks late into the afternoon. Mihara continues to work diligently, the sound of his mouse clicks filling the quiet room as the sun begins to set. Mihara sits alone at his low table with his laptop and some leftovers. He reflects on how incredibly quiet the apartment feels without any visitors. He stares blankly ahead, looking bored and a little lonely. Mihara eventually moves to his futon to rest. After lying down for a while, he picks up his phone and sits at his desk to look at it. Mihara holds the phone to his ear and tentatively says hello to the person on the other end. Asanagi answers from her own bed, sounding half asleep. Mihara immediately feels guilty and asks if he woke her up, explaining that he had just finished a quick nap himself. Asanagi asks what is going on and wonders if he has run into some kind of trouble with the festival project. Mihara stammers and tries to find an excuse for his call. He admits that the work is going well and begins to wonder why he even called her in the first place. On her end, Asanagi stares at her glowing phone screen. Mihara sits back at his laptop and explains that since he is in the final stages of the blueprint, he was just wondering if it was really okay for him to do it all by himself. He apologizes again for waking her up, while Asanagi listens with a warm smile. Asanagi lets out a quiet, amused laugh on the other end of the line. Asanagi asks what he really wants. Mihara turns red and nervously asks if she could come over to his place, adding that it wouldn't just be for work. Mihara continues to struggle with his words, awkwardly asking if they could simply hang out together for a while. Asanagi teases him, asking if he was just lonely because they couldn't see each other today. She giggles and asks since when he became like a lonely rabbit, though a side note mentions it is just a common superstition. Mihara gets defensive and flustered, shouting that it doesn't matter and he will just finish the work on his own. Asanagi asks if he is really sure about that. Mihara insists it is fine and tells her to just forget he ever called, but Asanagi says she has a request of her own. Asanagi gives a playful, mischievous smile as she looks at her phone. She asks Mihara if she can come over to his house and play right now. Asanagi admits over the phone that she is also feeling a bit lonely right now. Mihara looks at his phone with a blushing face. Mihara enthusiastically agrees and declares that he will go pick her up right away. A view of a 24-hour convenience store appears under the night sky. As the two walk together at night, Asanagi asks if Mihara really went to the pizza shop to ask for help. He confirms that he did and plans to pick up their empty cans this coming Sunday. Asanagi is impressed and notes that the staff might be willing to help since he is a regular customer. Mihara laughs and mentions they even warned him about the health effects of eating too much pizza. Yuu walks alone through the neighborhood during the evening. Inside the apartment, Asanagi sits at the laptop bundled in a blanket and looks at the work Mihara has completed. She is amazed by how much he did, while he nervously notes that he didn't work under a blanket like that. Mihara apologizes for her being tired and suggests she can lie down and sleep if she wants. Asanagi looks back at him in surprise and asks if he really means for her to sleep there. Asanagi sighs and remarks that Mihara says some very bold things. He reminds her that she has already slept over before, but she worries about sleeping until noon. Mihara firmly vows to wake her up on time this time. 2 slices of leftover pizza remain in the box on the table. Asanagi asks if she can eat the leftover pizza. Mihara points out that she said she already ate, but she playfully insists that this is dessert pizza. Asanagi happily takes a bite of the pizza slice while Mihara watches her. The two sit together at the table in the quiet room with the laptop and leftovers. Asanagi looks at Mihara and calls out his name to get his attention for a serious conversation. Asanagi asks Mihara to hear her out and promises not to get angry. Mihara looks back at her with a nervous and attentive expression. Asanagi reveals that when they were drawing lots for the committee, she actually pulled a dud. Mihara is stunned and asks if that means she lied to Yuu and the rest of the class. Asanagi remains quiet and looks down, feeling the weight of her secret. Mihara asks her why he would ever be angry with her for what she did. Mihara continues to wonder why she even thought he would get angry in the first place. Asanagi looks at him with a serious expression and insists that she cheated. Mihara argues that it would only be cheating if she had won, but claims she lost. He reminds her that most people considered being paired with him to be a penalty anyway. Mihara tells her that her real friend would have stood up for her in front of everyone just like Yuu did. Asanagi looks at him in silence, clearly taken aback by his perspective. Mihara reaches across the table and takes Asanagi's hand. Mihara firmly tells her that she is wrong about herself while blushing. Mihara tells Asanagi that he is genuinely happy to be on the festival committee with her. Mihara thanks Asanagi for trying to save him in her own way. She looks down with a blush and remains silent. Asanagi softly says Mihara's name and begins to say something else. Suddenly, the doorbell rings with a loud chime, startling both of them and interrupting the conversation. Mihara stares at the door and thinks it can't be his mom since she said she wasn't coming home today. Asanagi watches from the floor and asks if he thinks it really is his mother. Mihara opens the door and finds Yuu standing there in the dark. Yuu apologizes for bothering Mihara at such a late hour. Mihara looks back at her with a stunned expression. Yuu looks intently at Mihara and softly calls him by his name. Mihara remains silent and nervous while Yuu continues her question. Yuu asks if Yumi is inside right now. Asanagi stands in the room and looks toward the doorway. Mihara realizes that Asanagi really hasn't told Amami-san anything about their friendship yet. Yuu stands at the entrance holding her bag. Asanagi steps into view behind Mihara and apologizes to Yuu. Yuu looks at her friend with a neutral expression. Yuu smiles and says it is fine because she was planning on leaving soon anyway. Mihara tells Amami-san to please come inside first. Mihara decides to explain everything and tells Amami-san that he and Asanagi have been getting along for a while. He clarifies that he called her over today to help with the festival preparations. Yuu looks away and says she doesn't want to be a bother to the two of them. Yuu admits she already had a feeling something was going on. She notes that lately Yumi has been leaving early to supposedly run errands. Mihara apologizes to Amami-san and takes full responsibility for the situation. Yuu recalls the time Mihara brought coffee for Yumi exactly how she likes it, even though her friend never said a word. Mihara explains that their friendship started because they the same hobbies. He mentions their mutual love for B-movies, which surprises Yuu. Mihara confesses that he was the one who asked Asanagi to keep things a secret to avoid rumors at school. He turns to Asanagi as he finishes his explanation. Yuu lets out a laugh and says she finally understands what this was all about. Yuu turns to Yumi and asks why she didn't tell her about their friendship. Yuu says she already understands the situation and didn't need to be kept in the dark. She promises to keep Yumi's secret safe from others while Mihara looks on from behind. Asanagi looks down with a distant expression and quietly admits that Yuu is right. Yuu continues saying she knew Mihara would keep the secret because of everything he has done for them so far. Asanagi looks away and confesses that she simply didn't want to tell Yuu about her relationship with Mihara. Mihara watches her with a look of concern. Asanagi abruptly announces she is leaving for the night. Yuu tries to follow and offer her a walk home, but Asanagi notes that Yuu was the person she least wanted to find out. Asanagi firmly tells Yuu not to come with her. Yuu stops and apologizes if she did something to offend her friend. Asanagi stops by the door and looks back at Mihara one last time. Asanagi thanks Mihara for the day and says she is really happy that he invited her over. Mihara is left standing in the entryway unsure of how to react as Yuu waits nearby. Mihara reflects on the fact that this is the first time he has ever seen Yumi act that way. The next morning arrives at school. Mihara walks through the hallway while checking his phone as other students greet each other. Mihara looks at his messages to Asanagi, including the finished blueprint file and several follow-up texts. He realizes with a sinking feeling that she has left him on read. Mihara greets his classmates as he enters the room. He worries to himself about whether or not Asanagi will actually show up to school today. Mihara looks up with a start, his eyes wide as he processes a sudden thought. Asanagi and Amami enter the classroom together, acting completely normal as they chat. Amami offers a morning greeting and steals a quick glance toward Mihara while he notices that they seem to be their usual selves. The teacher announces that the class will spend the next 2 days focused entirely on festival preparations. Mihara nervously checks a message from Amami, who apologizes for not being able to talk to him sooner. Amami asks if he spoke to Yumi yet. Mihara replies that he sent a text, but received no response, then asks how things went on her end. Amami admits it was difficult to text her as well, but explains that Asanagi showed up at her house as usual that morning. Amami reports that Asanagi apologized for Friday and specifically asked her to just forget that everything happened. Mihara remains at his desk looking deeply troubled and contemplative after reading the messages. Asanagi suddenly turns around in her seat and addresses Mihara, formally asking him to give out the instructions for the project. Mihara is taken aback by her polite and normal demeanor. He realizes that she is acting like the usual Asanagi and quickly agrees to start the briefing. Mihara and Asanagi stand at the front of the room to address the class. Asanagi warns everyone that they need to stick to the schedule or they might have to stay overnight to finish, prompting a mix of excitement and groans from the other students. As work begins, Mihara watches Asanagi and wonders if she was the one truly troubled by their secret. Asanagi tells the group to get started. Students spread out across the floor to begin linking the collected cans. Mihara continues to dwell on whether Asanagi was struggling with the weight of her own secret. Asanagi laughs and jokes with her classmates as they sort through the supplies. When a girl worries they are low on red materials, Asanagi playfully tells her to just drink some soda to get more cans. Mihara approaches Asanagi while she is working on the floor and asks if she has a moment to talk. Asanagi looks up at him with a calm expression and asks if there is an issue with the other team. Mihara simply tells her that everything is fine. Mihara approaches Asanagi while they are working on the floor and tells her that he has something really important to say to her. Mihara asks if he can have a moment with her alone as they both look at each other. Amami steps in and says that they are doing all right since they have the blueprints to check as they work. She tells Yumi it is okay if she leaves for a while. Nina adds that the B team is also doing fine without the class rep. The other students agree with her. Mihara calls out Asanagi's name with a very nervous expression on his face. Asanagi looks back at him with wide eyes waiting for him to continue. The two of them walk away together down the corridor while the rest of the class watches them go. The classmates start whispering among themselves, wondering if they are going to a committee meeting or if something suspicious is going on. One boy remarks that he always thought Mihara and Amami were close, prompting a sharp response from Amami as she asks him what about her. Amami tells everyone to get back to work as the class reacts to her sudden intensity. Inside a separate room, Asanagi calls Mihara an idiot while walking ahead of him. Asanagi pauses and looks back toward the closed door of the room. Asanagi shouts at Mihara, calling him a dumbo and an idiot for creating rumors when he was the one who didn't want to attract attention. Mihara admits he might be acting like an idiot. Asanagi asks about Yu and Nina while looking down. Mihara explains that he spoke up because she kept ignoring him. Asanagi stares at him in silence for a moment before quietly saying his name. Asanagi asks Mihara what he is doing, and he explains that the teacher instructed him to clean infrequently used areas like the storage room after he reported the cigarette issue. Asanagi realizes that this cleanup was the important matter he wanted to discuss. Mihara offers to finish the work by himself since it involves cleaning up strangers' cigarettes, but Asanagi insists on helping because it is part of their D job. Mihara places an empty can onto the shelf with a clinking sound. As Mihara continues working, he asks Asanagi if she is really not going to ask him any questions. Mihara admits that he wants to know what she is thinking, but says he will not force her to talk. He explains that he is simply trying to repay her for everything she has done for him. Mihara points out that just as she never pressured him to talk about his father or why he lacked friends in middle school, he will respect her privacy in the same way. Mihara states that he learned from Asanagi that respecting those boundaries is how a true friend should act. Mihara promises to wait until she feels comfortable enough to talk about it on her own terms. Asanagi suddenly wraps her arms around Mihara from behind, causing him to drop the can he was holding in surprise. Asanagi holds onto Mihara tightly while he stands frozen in the quiet storage room. Asanagi begins to speak, but her voice falters as she struggles to find the words. Asanagi leans her head against Mihara's back in a vulnerable moment of silence. In a quiet reflection, Asanagi confesses that she always believed she was a much stronger person than she actually is. In a memory from middle school, Amami asks her friends if they are okay with her voting for Yumi to be on the student committee, saying she wants her friend to be part of it too. Amami promises to give the role her best shot if they trust her, while Yumi watches her from her bus seat and thinks about her friend's character. Yumi watches Yu from a distance and wonders if she is crying. Yumi remains at the bus stop and watches as Yu walks further away alone. Yumi tells her other friends that she has something else to do and encourages them to go on without her. She runs off in the opposite direction after saying goodbye. Yumi finds Yu sitting by herself on a park bench and offers a greeting. Yu is startled by the sudden voice and jumps in surprise. Yu introduces herself as Amami Yu from Class 3-1. Yumi looks at her and thinks that she is incredibly cute. Yumi asks her own name and class before asking Yu if she is all alone. Yu admits she just moved there and hasn't made any friends yet. Yumi suggests they walk home together, pointing out that it is dangerous to be out alone. Yu suddenly breaks into tears as she looks at Yumi. Yumi is left speechless and shocked by the emotional reaction. The two girls stand together in the quiet park as the wind blows past them. As they walk, Yu explains that students at her previous school avoided her. She initially believed it was because of her hair color. Yumi wonders if that was really the only cause for her isolation. Yu looks down and mentions that her hair color looks like a grandmother's. Yu confesses that she is bad at socializing. She remembers people gossiping about her hair, her voice, and her way of speaking while she stood alone. Yu states her belief that things will be exactly the same at this school. Yumi reaches out and firmly takes Yu's hand. She tells her there is no need to worry because she is right there with her. Yumi asks Yu to be her friend. Yu looks at her with a pained expression and warns her that staying with her will cause others to hate her as well. Yumi smiles and tells her that it is fine. Yu states that even if no one else wants to be friends with her, she won't be alone. Yu adds that she will have Yumi by her side. Yumi suggests that Yu should also start calling her by her first name. Yumi gives a small nod. Yu looks incredibly flustered and begins to sweat. Yu stammers out Yumi's name while her friend lets out a bashful laugh. Yu finally adds the honorific to her friend's name. Yumi gives a bright, happy laugh as she looks at her. Yumi points out that Yu just laughed and tells her how cute she is. Yu is overwhelmed and struggles to find the right words to respond. Yu asks what she means and tells Yumi that she is also cute. She admits she was surprised when Yumi first called out to her in the park. Yu complains that Yumi doesn't understand the situation at all. Yumi insists that Yu is really cute and suggests that people are likely just jealous. She tells her she should be proud, praising her fair skin, round eyes, and smooth hair. Yumi looks at her and adds that she is at her absolute cutest when she is smiling. Yumi vows to keep saying it until Yu gets used to the praise while Yu begs her to stop. In the present, Yumi reflects on how strange she finds her own actions. Yumi thinks about how she wouldn't hold anything back if it were for Yu's sake. She remembers the time she invited Yu to walk home with her and her other friends. The other girls in the group look at Yu with surprised and curious expressions. On the bus, the girls excitedly exclaim about how cute Yu is. Yumi looks at her friend with a warm expression. In a flashback to their school days, Yumi tells Yu to feel free to come to Class 3 if she ever finds herself in trouble. Yu agrees with a simple response. Yumi thinks to herself that a girl like Yu should never have to be alone. Yu expresses her joy at finally being in the same class as Yumi. Yumi reflects on her belief that Yu isn't the type of person who should be left to sulk by herself. During a class meeting, a student nominates Amami-san to be the leader for their performance presentation. Yu admits to herself that she had been praying for an opportunity like this to finally happen. Yu hesitates, questioning if she is capable of handling the role and suggesting that someone more suitable should take the position. However, the rest of the class agrees with the nomination and voices no objections. Yumi encourages her friend, pointing out that this is a once-in-a-lifetime chance and urging her to give it a shot. Yu decides to give the leadership role a try. Yumi recalls that back then her friend used to be a scaredy cat and a frequent crybaby. Yu dances and laughs happily with her classmates during the school event. Yumi realizes that in truth, Yu had always deeply wanted to believe in the value of school and friendship. Yumi watches Yu from behind a curtain, thinking about how precious and cute her friend's smile is when she is surrounded by friends. Yumi considers the idea that when she and Yu are together, they look just like a princess and her prince. She decides that being seen that way isn't bad at all. Back in the storage room, Yumi reflects on her choice to remain the kind and strong version of herself. She realized she did it because she wanted to see Yu smile and because Yu had once told her she loved that part of her character. Yumi admits that even when she felt a bit tired, she would only take a rest in secret. She believed that as long as she could push through on her own, everything would turn out fine. A memory of Yumi sitting with Mihara in his apartment flashes through her mind. She recalls that she never actually had any plans to lean on or confide in anyone else. Yumi continues to hug Mihara from behind in the quiet storage room. She acknowledges to herself that her previous assumption about being able to handle everything alone was wrong. Mihara becomes incredibly flustered and wonders if he should say something to her. Yumi leans her head against his back and calls him an idiot. Yumi calls Mihara a big idiot and a stupid person. She then asks him why he is always so kind to her. Yumi acknowledges that his kindness is his best quality, but she feels like a coward for taking advantage of it. When Mihara tries to speak, she tells him not to look at her, and he quickly agrees. Yumi quietly calls out Mihara's name while still hiding her face. Yumi suddenly pulls away and apologizes, telling Mihara to just forget about what just happened. She admits that her outburst must have caught him by surprise. Mihara simply agrees that he was indeed surprised. Mihara confesses that he was actually very worried about her. Mihara explains that he was afraid he had unintentionally hurt her feelings and couldn't stop thinking about it. He admits that it is scary when she stays completely silent and won't speak to him. Yumi listens to his explanation and realizes that his fear actually makes a lot of sense. Mihara tentatively asks if she is still angry with him. Yumi lets out a small laugh and tells him that there is absolutely no way she could ever be mad at him. Mihara watches her closely, confused as to whether she is truly finished crying or if she just stopped. Yumi sincerely thanks Mihara again. Mihara stammers in response and tells her that he wants to be able to talk to her properly about everything. Mihara says he wants to be honest with both her and Yuu regarding all the secrets he kept and the lies he told. He admits that while they haven't been friends long enough to be considered close, he still wants to be better. Mihara looks at her and explains that for now his priority is being honest with himself first. Mihara notes that since everyone is putting in their best effort, he wants to handle his responsibilities properly until the very end of the project. Mihara calls out Asanagi's name as they prepare to leave. As he watches her walk ahead of him, he realizes that she has truly placed her belief in him. Yumi tells Mihara that she just wants to let him know something. Mihara looks at her in surprise. Yumi softly tells Mihara that she is on his side. Yumi walks away into the hallway, looking back one last time with a faint smile. Nina cheers loudly as the class finally completes their project preparations. Yuu looks at a photo of the finished pixel art on her phone and exclaims that they actually made it. She calls Yumi to tell her that the exhibit looks perfect. On the rooftop, the girls check the alignment of the cans. Yumi is relieved that it turned out well, while her classmate asks if it looks like a proper picture and agrees that it looks cool. The class erupts in celebration now that they are finished. One of the boys excitedly tells Mihara that they might actually win first place in the rankings. Mihara agrees with a hesitant nod. The students on the rooftop begin to disperse now that they are free. Some talk about taking long naps before the opening ceremony or heading to the club showers. Mihara looks at the massive rows of cans and reflects on how they actually managed to finish. He thinks about how everyone seems to have moved past the earlier drama, realizing that they were probably just too busy with the work to hold onto grudges. Yumi watches Mihara as he sits alone by the railing. She thinks about how getting along with others doesn't always require forcing a personality match, and that things can go smoothly without overthinking it. She calls out Mihara's name to get his attention. Yumi approaches Mihara with a smile and hands him his Forgotten Committee armband. Mihara reflects on the fact that she was the one who taught him how to handle social situations differently. Yumi notes how tired Mihara looks and asks if he wants to take a nap. Mihara admits that if he closes his eyes for even a second, he will fall right into the dream world. Mihara tells Asanagi that the final result is amazing and that they really pulled it off together. Mihara praises Asanagi for all her hard work. She brushes it off, insisting it was a team effort from the whole class. Mihara admits he is happy that even someone like him was able to contribute this much to the project. Yumi turns to look at him as he speaks. Yumi gazes intently at Mihara. Mihara reflects on how his habit of overthinking made things difficult, but notes that their dedication allowed them to achieve their goal. Mihara pauses and looks away while considering his next words. Mihara tells Yumi that because he managed to do it, he is confident she can pull it off as well. Yuu bursts into the room and cheers for the two of them, praising their hard work. Yuu offers them drinks she received secretly from their teacher and thanks Mihara for everything. Mihara asks Yuu if she slept at all, but she insists she is fine after having breakfast. Yuu teases them about having a romantic moment and quickly says she is leaving. Yumi reaches out and grabs Yuu's arm to stop her. Yumi calls out to Yu and says there is something they need to talk about. Yumi asks Yu if she will listen to what she has to say. Yu agrees to listen and asks what is on her mind while Mihara watches them. A flashback begins with a memory of the start of middle school when these thoughts first surfaced. Yu hugs Yumi tightly and asks how happy she is that they ended up in the same class. Yu plans a lunch meeting with their other friends, and Yumi reflects on how Yu has stayed exactly the same since they were younger. A classmate warns Yu that new students might laugh at her if she keeps clinging to Yumi so much. Yu realizes there are now many people from other schools around and acknowledges the situation. Yumi tells Yu that she shouldn't worry too much about what others think. Yu smiles as she reflects on how they were always noticed no matter where they went together. Yumi considers the dynamics of their friendship during their earlier school days. Yumi thinks about how Yu has a natural talent for standing out and being a leader even if she isn't trying to be. Classmates whisper about how cute Yu is and mention that being her friend is something worth bragging about, leaving Yumi feeling confused. Yumi sits alone and admits that while Yu was her precious friend, she didn't yet understand the true meaning behind the things people were saying. A group of girls approaches Yu and asks if she has a moment to talk. The girl explains that they are planning a trip to the pool with some students from another school. The girl invites Yu to join them, causing Yu to wonder if they are really sure about wanting her to come. The girl shows Yu a picture of the destination and notes that the journey will take about 2 hours by public transport. Yu says she needs to get permission from her parents, but feels confident they will say yes if Yumi is also included in the trip. The other girls exchange a look and remain silent for a moment after hearing Yumi's name mentioned. The girls apologize for the sudden invitation and say it is fine if her parents are strict, while Yu waves goodbye and thanks them for including her. Yumi stands in the school hallway and watches as the group of girls walks away. Yumi remains silent as the other students pass her by. Yu runs over to Yumi and asks if she was talking with the others. Yumi admits she didn't realize Yu was friends with those girls, but Yu clarifies that isn't exactly the case. Yu explains that she hasn't really spoken to them much before, but they invited her to the pool. She admits she is confused about why they asked her, which makes Yumi laugh. Yumi looks at her friend with a quiet and thoughtful expression. Sitting together later, Yumi admits that now she wants to go to the pool as well. Yu happily suggests they go to the city pool together next time, and Yumi agrees that it sounds like a great plan. Yumi lies in bed that night and thinks about the way those girls looked at her. She feels like something about the interaction was not quite right. Yumi reflects on the unpleasant feeling she had even though nothing actually happened. She eventually concludes that she is just overthinking the situation. Yumi thinks about how they stayed together simply because they were compatible and enjoyed each other's company. Yumi and Yu meet up outside the city pool. Yumi reflects on how the word friend eventually came to mean much more to her. Yumi watches Yu waving happily and decides that their current relationship is perfectly fine. The two girls head inside toward the pool area. Yumi feels reassured that nothing has changed about their friendship. Yu fixes her hair while Yumi watches her. Yumi realizes that no matter what, her friend is still the same person she has always been. As they enter their 3rd year of middle school, Yumi admits that she finally began to notice how others perceived them. While walking through the hall with Yu, Yumi overhears a student identifying her as Yu's best friend. She hears the dismissive response from another classmate and begins to understand her reputation. Yumi recalls not caring about what strangers thought of her. She asks her group if they are free next weekend. Yumi shows her friends for movie tickets and mentions they haven't hung out lately. Sani and Manaka say it depends on their progress with studying. Sani and Manaka apologize and say this weekend is impossible for them. Yumi laughs it off and says it is fine. Yumi walks through the city and thinks about inviting Yu, but decides it isn't a good idea if the others are missing. She tells herself that going alone is perfectly fine. Yumi reflects on how high school will leave them even less time to socialize. She notes how overwhelmed Sani and Manaka already seem with their studies. Yumi hears a voice calling out for Yu to come over. Yumi looks back and sees Yu joining Sani and Manaka. Yumi stands on the sidewalk and watches her friends gather together. Yumi wonders why they lied to her about having plans when they are all hanging out together. Inside a cafe, Sani asks Yu if she is okay. Yu lets out a sigh but claims she is fine. Yu says she wishes Yumi were there to have fun with them. The others bring up that Yumi said she had things to do while Yumi watches from outside. Yumi listens intently as the group continues to talk. Yuu suggests getting a gift for Yumi. When Manhwa tries to text her, Sani quickly stops her. Sani argues that they shouldn't tell Yumi what they are doing because she is busy studying and would want to join. Yuu realizes she needs to be more thoughtful. Yumi stands alone outside and overhears the others complaining that Yuu is always talking about her. She begins to question what is actually going on with their friendship. Yumi observes Sani and Manhwa wondering if they were the ones who arranged to meet without her, since Yuu seems unaware of the tension. Yumi clutches her movie tickets and struggles with the thought that her choice of film might be why her friends no longer want to spend time with her. Yumi stares down at the sidewalk and decides that, for the sake of their group, she has to pretend she never saw them together. The following morning, Yuu greets Yumi with a loud and happy morning shout while Sani and Manhwa walk beside her. Yumi smiles back at her friends, convincing herself that the recent incident was the only time Sani and Manhwa ever lied to her. Yumi looks away as she realizes that she is unable to maintain her composure any longer. Yumi reflects on the persistent feeling of being an outsider that has plagued her for a long time. Yuu is taken aback when Yumi announces her plan to apply to a different high school. Yuu and the others press for an explanation, but Yumi laughs it off and uses the high cost of tuition as a convenient excuse for her decision. Yumi clarifies that she simply wants to consider the variety of public school options available to her. Yumi apologizes for the late notice and explains she kept her decision secret only to avoid worrying them. Yuu shocks everyone by asking if she can also apply to the same school as Yumi. Yumi is momentarily frozen in shock by her friend's sudden proposal. While the others question if Yuu can actually handle the extra studying, Yumi feels a surge of happiness, but immediately dismisses it as foolish. Yumi admits to herself that as long as she stays by Yuu's side, she will live in a cycle of doubting those around her and fearing she will one day be left all alone. Yumi warns Yuu that the entrance exam will be difficult, but Yuu remains determined to do her best. Yumi reflects that the situation is not Yuu's fault. On a rainy graduation day, voices call out to Sani and Manhwa telling them not to forget to stay in touch. Yumi realizes there is still a significant problem. Sani and Manhwa bid farewell to Yumi in the rain, promising to see her again in April. Manhwa offers her sincere thanks for everything Yumi has done. Yumi stands alone under her umbrella and remarks on how quiet things will be without the other two. She then hesitates before beginning to ask a question. Yumi finally asks if they actually lied to her and hung out together without including her when she had invited them to the cinema. One of the girls stammers that they didn't exactly lie to her, but Yumi reveals that she was actually there and saw them together. Yumi clenches her umbrella handle and asks what she did wrong to deserve being excluded. She promises not to tell Yuu the truth since they are going to different schools. The girls confess that they were jealous of Yumi's status as Yuu's best friend. They explain that because everyone viewed Yumi as just a normal person doing nothing special, they believed it would be easy to replace her in Yuu's life. The girls acknowledge that Yumi was at least genuine with Yuu and ask her to stay friends with them since Yuu genuinely likes all of them. Yumi says her final goodbye, realizing that she can no longer handle the situation and that the core of the problem lies with her own feelings. Yumi considers that things might have been different if they were both seen as princesses. She admits she cannot blame people for wondering why Yuu chose her, as she was also captivated by Yuu from the start. Yumi decides that when she gets home, she will just put on a movie to distract herself. Yumi plans to watch an over-the-top comedy so she can simply laugh and forget her troubles. Yumi continues walking through the rain alone under her umbrella. Yumi concludes her story explaining that these events preceded their current conversation. Yuu is shocked and admits she had no idea about any of it. Yumi says she wanted to clarify why she avoids meeting Sani and Manhwa during the school festival. Yuu is angry and labels the two girls as the absolute worst. Yumi explains that they eventually resolved things, and she understands their past behavior was driven by impulsive curiosity. Yuu remains adamant that she cannot forgive them. Yuu shouts at the top of her lungs that Yumi is her #1 best friend in the whole world. Yumi looks away and admits that while those words make her happy, they also carry a different weight for her. Yumi confesses that she has started to feel a growing sense of resentment toward their dynamic, even if she cannot quite explain why. Yumi offers her thanks to Yuu for liking her, but her expression remains downcast. Yumi admits that even though she loves Yuu, she has also started to feel a growing sense of hatred toward her. Yumi apologizes to her friends and says she needs to step away for a bit to regain her composure. Yumi asks to be left alone for a while, insisting she isn't just avoiding the topic. Mihara watches her leave with a stunned expression. Mihara turns to Yu and addresses her as they watch Yumi walk away. Mihara tells Yu that he will go follow Yumi and promises that things will be fine. Yu is confused and asks him what he means as he starts walking. Mihara reflects on how Yumi is actually quite similar to himself as he heads up the stairs after her. Yu remains behind and asks Mihara to take care of Yumi. Mihara firmly agrees to do so. Yumi sits in silence by the window in a room cluttered with unfinished festival projects. A sign on the door indicates that the group is currently staying overnight for preparations. Yumi asks Mihara why he didn't leave her alone as she requested. He enters the room and notes that she would have picked a better hiding spot if she truly wanted to be by herself. She hides her face and calls him an idiot. Mihara stands over Yumi as she sits at a desk. He admits that he still feels the weight of the situation on his own shoulders. Mihara sits down near Yumi. She laments that she stupidly tried to keep her feelings bottled up but ended up saying horrible things anyway. She declares that the situation is the worst and that she is the worst person. Mihara looks at Yumi and tells her she isn't the worst. He points out that she kept everything to herself specifically so Amami-san wouldn't have to doubt her other friends. Yumi remains slumped over the desk and quietly remarks that this outcome is exactly what she deserves. Mihara watches her as she continues her thought. She recalls being the one who always praised Yu for being cute, cheerful, and popular. Yumi looks up with tears in her eyes and admits she feels offended whenever she is compared to Yu. Mihara listens as Yumi explains that her mind is telling her to return to being a loner even though she remembers crying frequently during that time. From outside the window, the two can be seen sitting together in the quiet room. Yumi wonders out loud how she could have said those things and insists she can't believe she actually did it. Yumi looks at Mihara with a tear-streaked face. He starts to ask why she doesn't want him to talk about her with Amami-san. Yumi breaks down into heavy sobs and confesses that she simply doesn't want Yu to take him away from her. Yumi buries her head back in her arms and repeats that she doesn't want her friend to take anyone else away. Mihara watches her, realizing that things are never simple enough to just break off or go back to how they were. Mihara reaches out and offers Yumi a tissue. He tells her that she did a great job and calls her amazing. Yumi takes the tissue and wipes her eyes. She agrees that she did her best and asks Mihara to give her even more praise. Up on the rooftop, Nina finds Yu sitting alone and asks if there is something on her mind. Yu claims she is just thinking, which Nina finds unusual for her. Yu reflects on the complicated mix of liking and hating someone at the same time. Yu reflects on her mixed feelings, noting that while she mentioned hate, she still has much to think about. Mihara comforts Yumi as she continues to struggle with her conflicting emotions. Nearby, other students manage the festival reception, handing out school maps and voting forms. Mihara asks Yumi what she would like to do from here on out. Yumi asks what he means while still trying to settle her hiccups. Mihara brings up their usual Friday meetings. Mihara tells Yumi that she won't be able to truly enjoy their time this week while she is in this emotional state. Mihara stares ahead with a serious and determined expression. Mihara suggests they should give each other some space if it helps her patch things up with Amami-san. Mihara tells Yumi she should focus on that for now. Yumi starts to object, but Mihara speaks up forcefully. Mihara clenches his fists and clarifies that he wants space, not to stop being friends. He says he hopes they can still exchange texts. Yumi pokes Mihara on the cheek to get him to stop talking. Yumi tells Mihara that he talks way too fast and asks him to finally listen to her perspective. Yumi apologizes for her earlier freak out. Mihara admits he was also worrying about a lot of things. Yumi says she should have realized he would be affected as well, then prepares to ask a specific question. Yumi looks Mihara in the eye and asks if he would be lonely if they didn't hang out anymore, wanting to hear his true feelings. Mihara looks at Yumi with a surprised and flustered expression after hearing her question. Mihara admits that it is obvious he would be lonely without her. Yumi listens quietly as he speaks. Mihara confesses that while he wants their current relationship to stay the same forever, he also genuinely wants Yumi and Yu to get along again. Yumi lets out a small laugh and remarks on how selfish he is being. Mihara admits that he is well aware of his own selfishness. A student in the hallway mentions that the responsibility now lies with them. Mihara offers his sincere thanks to Yumi for being honest with him about her feelings. Yumi and Mihara stand together on the school roof. Yumi realizes that they need to resolve the situation now because it will continue to weigh on them. She receives a message from Yuu saying she has finished her committee duties and is heading to the roof. Yumi decides that if she truly wants to maintain her friendship with Yuu, she must be the one to take the first step. Yuu opens the door and walks onto the roof. Yumi watches her approach, silently apologizing to Mihara while acknowledging that she is perhaps even more selfish than he is. Yuu offers a greeting and praises Yumi for her hard work with the committee. Yumi looks at her with a mix of hesitation and resolve. Yumi addresses Yuu and prepares to start a serious conversation about their friendship. Mihara watches from a short distance away. Yumi bows her head and offers a deep apology to Yuu for keeping secrets from her for so long. Yumi continues to apologize with her head lowered. Yuu looks at Yumi and calls her dumb for holding everything in. She acknowledges that while Yumi was keeping secrets, there was more to the situation than that. Yuu offers her own apology, admitting she feels terrible for being right next to Yumi and yet failing to notice how much she was actually suffering. Yumi looks up at Yuu with wide, tear-filled eyes, deeply moved by her friend's understanding. Yumi explains that she wants their relationship to be more than just best friends in name and desires for them to be real friends. Yuu agrees with her immediately. Yumi says she wants to learn even more about Yuu and become more reliable. She vows to be more honest from now on. Yumi states she will stop hanging out with Mihara in the same way. Yuu reacts with surprise, but Mihara explains that they are planning to give each other some space. Yuu admits she felt like she was using both of them by turning down Yumi's after-school invitations while using Mihara as an excuse. Yuu asks Mihara if he is comfortable with this arrangement. He confirms that he will respect Yumi's decision. Yuu looks at Yumi with a wide-eyed expression. Yumi mentions that her proposal assumes Yuu will forgive her for doing horrible things out of insecurity. Yuu shouts that she absolutely will not forgive her. Yumi and Mihara are left completely stunned by Yuu's sudden outburst. Yuu continues to yell, calling Yumi and Mihara dumb and telling them they don't understand the situation at all. Yuu tells Yumi to consider her perspective and asks if keeping things hidden really counts as being honest. Yumi struggles to find an answer. Yuu points her finger directly at Yumi's head. Yuu tells both of them to listen carefully if they really want to remain her friends. Yumi and Mihara wait in silence for Yuu to continue. Yumi and Yuu hold hands tightly. In the background, the festival crowd continues to chatter as they move through the school. Yumi fumes while holding Mihara's hand, unable to believe Yuu would stoop to such a low trick to get back at her. Mihara covers his face in total embarrassment as Yuu remarks from a distance about seeing a completely new side of them. Yuu joyfully dictates the terms of their punishment, insisting they must explore the entire festival together while holding hands. She tells them to make sure they enjoy themselves while she watches with a happy expression. As they walk hand in hand, Yumi wonders if onlookers think they are being punished, then admits that it actually feels like one. Classmates pass by and gush about how cute the pair looks together. Yumi catches Nina taking a photo and demands to know what she is doing. Nina simply tells her not to worry and promises to send her the picture later, while Mihara remains flustered in the background. Mihara looks at Yumi and considers that her return to her usual personality means she and Yuu have finally made up properly. Yumi mutters under her breath about how she plans to flick Yuu on the forehead later as a way to get even for the hand-holding stunt. Mihara watches her with a slightly surprised look. Mihara reflects on how it has been a long time since he last saw Yumi acting like her true self, and he feels a sense of relief that she has returned to normal. Yumi and Mihara a quiet moment looking directly at one another while they walk. The two of them stand together still holding hands and blushing deeply as the atmosphere around them softens. Yumi notes that it has finally sunk in that they are actually exploring their school festival together. Mihara admits he hasn't even thought about where they should head first. They pass a sign for a final movie screening at 2 o'clock. Mihara agrees that he also had no specific destination in mind. Yumi suggests they just continue walking around for a while. She keeps a firm grip on Mihara's hand as she leads the way down the corridor. After finding some food, they sit down on a bench to eat corn dogs. Both of them admit they were starving after all the morning's activities. Yumi excitedly spots a haunted house and wants to enter immediately. Mihara hesitates, admitting he is bad with scary things, but Yumi reminds him of his love for horizontal B-tier horror movies and insists a class project won't be that bad. Inside the attraction, several terrifying figures with long hair and distorted faces suddenly emerge from the gloom to startle them. Mihara screams for Yumi not to abandon him while she laughs at his dramatic reaction to the haunted house. Mihara leans against a bench and complains that even though he knew the actors were just upperclassmen, they were still terrifying. Yumi continues to laugh and says that he never disappoints her. Yumi hands Mihara a drink and points out the window, noting that they can see their class mosaic exhibit from their current spot. Yumi observes that the finished mosaic looks quite impressive when viewed from a distance. Yumi reminds Mihara that he wanted to win the festival competition since they both put in so much effort. Mihara looks flustered and asks if he really said that. Mihara suggests that they might actually have a chance at winning for real. Yumi looks thoughtful as she considers the possibility of a victory. Yumi gives a small smile and decides that after everything that has happened, she is fine with either outcome. Mihara states that regardless of what anyone else thinks, Yumi's thoughts are what matter most to him. Yumi happily agrees with his sentiment while Mihara blushes and takes a sip of his drink. Yumi looks at Mihara with a soft and focused expression. Mihara suddenly realizes she might have meant something else and asks if she was just talking about the exhibit. When Yumi cryptically mentions that was only part of it, Mihara becomes flustered and Yumi tells him to never mind. Back at the apartment, Yumi opens a bag of chips and asks if the usual coffee is fine. Mihara agrees while he handles the brewing in the background. Mihara points out a rare item drop on the game screen, noting it is a feather with only a 3% drop rate. Yumi is surprised by the low odds, but Mihara reminds her that they need the item to craft a key for the underground world she wanted to explore. The character on the screen lands several hits on enemies as they continue their quest in the game. Yumi panics and clicks her buttons rapidly as Mihara announces he is shooting. Her character dies in the game and Mihara offers a quick apology explaining that he didn't do it on purpose. Yumi eats a snack and vents her frustration while Mihara asks if her gaming skills are declining. In the game world, Yumi tells him she spawned in a strange place and is heading back to his location. Mihara teases Yumi by saying she was never good at games and that he was just being nice before. Yumi gets annoyed and playfully hits him for the insult. Yumi explains that she has been able to play at home because she's been busy, so her list of videos and films is growing. She shows Mihara her phone screen to prove her point. Mihara looks at a title called Fisherman vs. Shark and asks if it is a documentary. Yumi clarifies that it is actually supposed to be a horror movie. Mihara suggests they watch that movie next and Yumi happily agrees. Mihara looks at her and calls out her name as they settle in. Yumi turns her head and notices Yuu sitting quietly at the table across from them watching their interaction. Yuu rests her chin on her hands and asks if they want something from the ghost in the room. Yumi looks over at her friend with a steady gaze. Yumi apologizes and admits she was having so much fun with Mihara that she didn't even notice Yuu was there. She tells her friend that it would be impossible for her to go a long time without seeing her. The conversation shifts to a plan for the upcoming cultural festival, suggesting they should hold hands and walk around together. Yuu agrees to the idea immediately with a happy expression. Mihara and Yumi are both caught off guard and ask if she means they should do it right now. Yuu admits she has been bothering them lately and asks for things to stay just as they are until next Friday. Yuu explains that she wants to become a ghost so she can observe them both. She tells Yumi that she doesn't want to hear her say she wants to be away from Mihara anymore. Yumi gives Yuu a tight hug and Yuu says she is fine with the arrangement as long as she has Yumi the rest of the time. Mihara thinks to himself that they have finally returned to normal. Yumi asks Yuu if she will feel lonely with this plan. Yuu smiles and suggests that they should just spend their time talking about many different things together. Yuu announces that since her wish has been fulfilled, she is willing to forgive everything that has happened up until now. Yumi looks at her with a gentle expression as the blonde girl stands before her. Yuu picks up her bag and declares that the ghost is finally taking her leave. She turns to Mihara and tells him that her decision applies to him as well. Mihara thanks her and Yuu encourages them both to enjoy their time together and not to worry about her being alone. Yuu shouts a final goodbye and says she will see them on Monday before heading out the door. After the door slams shut, Yumi remarks that Yuu was truly like a storm. Yumi and Mihara stare at the television screen while they talk about how stormy the past few weeks have felt. Yumi admits that she still feels too restless to calm down. Mihara takes a sip from his mug and wonders if the chaos is finally over. He reflects on how the festival and the subsequent cleanup both finished without any major incidents. Mihara considers the aftermath of Asanagi's petition and notes that Amami has been spending time with two friends from middle school. He thinks about how Amami seemed to vanish after the festival and hopes for smooth sailing from here on out. Mihara sits at the table and continues to reflect on the events of autumn. He thinks about how he became friends with Asanagi and experienced many new things, including some troublesome situations, but one thing in particular remains stuck in his head. Yumi asks if the rumors about them will ever stop, specifically referring to things said during the festival cleanup. Mihara listens as she explains that the committee members have been spreading nonsense rumors because of the hand-holding idea. Mihara notes that even Nina has been teasing him lately. Yumi agrees that she has also been hearing similar things. Mihara suggests that after everything they have gone through, there is probably no reason to keep their friendship a secret anymore. Yumi looks at him with a thoughtful expression. Yumi lets out a small laugh and starts to ask a question before suddenly pointing at Mihara and shouting to get his attention. Mihara is caught completely off guard. Yumi asks Mihara if it would be okay for her to start calling him Maki. Mihara looks flustered and turns away while considering her request. Mihara tells Yumi she can call him that if it is what she wants, using her first name in return. Yumi immediately begins pointing her fingers at him and shouting in a mix of embarrassment and excitement. Mihara yells back, asking why she is reacting that way and calling her cheeky. He tells her she isn't making any sense as she continues her outburst. Mihara is frozen in surprise as Yumi reaches out and gently places her hand on top of his head. Yumi rests her chin on her hands and teasingly asks Maki if he likes her after all. He immediately gets flustered and tries to deny it, but she tells him he is trying too hard. Maki argues that finding an answer isn't that easy because liking someone has a deep meaning. He adds that it would be troublesome if he just went and said those words carelessly. Yumi looks at him with a serious expression and quietly says that she likes him. Maki stares back in shock until Yumi quickly adds that maybe she doesn't. He shouts in total confusion as she laughs at her prank. Yumi suddenly tells Maki that she loves him. He is left completely speechless, staring at her from across the table. Maki continues to stare at Yumi with wide, stunned eyes. Yumi announces that it is finally time for her to head home as the sun begins to set. Maki remains frozen in place. Maki eventually stands up and offers to walk her downstairs, looking incredibly nervous and red-faced. In the hallway, Yumi bundles up in her scarf. Maki calls out her name and reaches toward her. Maki hands Yumi a heating pad to keep her warm on her walk home. She looks at the gift in surprise. Yumi laughs and notes that it really is cold outside. Maki watches her and prepares to say something more. Maki sincerely thanks Yumi for saying that she loves him. Maki confesses that he isn't a cool guy and never really had friends because people treated him like he didn't exist. He tells Yumi that getting along with her, even when she plays pranks, makes him very happy. Maki turns to Yumi and asks her to wait until he can wholeheartedly say the words back to her. Yumi points out that he just said it, but Maki grabs his head in frustration and shouts that he said it, but it wasn't the way he meant to. Maki reflects on how he used to be unable to look people in the face even though he and Yumi have become friends now. He wonders if it is truly okay for them to just be people who secretly hang out together. In the elevator, Maki explains that since he has finally experienced what real friendship feels like, he wants their relationship to progress slowly from now on. Yumi looks at him and asks for clarification on what he means. Yumi jokingly asks if he means they should only start dating after their wedding has already been arranged. Maki looks away and admits he doesn't quite know how to say it, but it is something like that. Yumi laughs and remarks on how Maki can be incredibly serious at times. Maki remains flustered by her reaction. Yumi tells Maki to have it his way then. He watches her with a surprised and confused expression. Yumi looks directly at Maki and simply says okay. The elevator makes a soft sound as it continues its descent or arrives at a floor. Maki offers his thanks to Yumi. She stands near him looking slightly away as they wait. Yumi suddenly leans in very close to Maki's face, catching him completely off guard. Yumi shouts a goodbye and quickly runs away down the hall. Maki is left standing there with a stunned expression while Yumi looks back for a split second. Yumi looks back with a very red face as she makes her exit. Maki is bent over in the hallway, still reeling from her sudden move. Outside the building, Maki offers to walk Yumi home. She asks why he would do that since it is still bright outside. Back in his room, Maki lies in bed and thinks about how much he dislikes the winter season. Maki struggles to get out of his warm bed, thinking about how depressing it used to be to head to a school where he had no friends. He then reminds himself that those lonely days are firmly in the past. While getting ready in the morning, Maki thinks about how he finally has a friend this year. He sees a message on his phone from Yumi saying she has arrived. He finds her waiting for him outside in her winter coat, and she explains she came early so they could walk to school together. Maki greets her with a morning wish. Maki tells Yumi to wait a moment while he finishes getting ready. He quickly checks his hair in the mirror, hoping it doesn't look too messy and wondering if she realized he was fast asleep just a minute ago. Maki serves Yumi a steaming mug of coffee. She excitedly accepts it and labels the drink as the Mihara family special. Maki says he needs to pack his lunch and get changed before they leave. Yumi tells him not to rush because they still have plenty of time. Maki checks the wall clock and realizes she is right. Maki lets out a small laugh and admits that Yumi really did arrive much earlier than expected. Yumi remains completely silent as she stares at Maki. He stands there awkwardly while she continues to watch him without saying a word. Yumi points out that she actually owns the same pajamas that Maki is wearing. He explains that he simply liked the look of them when he bought them. Yumi asks if their current dynamic makes them seem like a couple while Maki asks where his mother went. Walking outside together, Maki explains that his mother has a lot of night shifts scheduled for December. Yumi remarks on how busy the end of the year must be for her, and Maki agrees. Yumi turns to Maki and asks if it feels particularly cold today. She thinks to herself that even though they aren't officially a couple yet, her next move might seem a bit odd. Maki looks ahead and agrees that the temperature has definitely dropped. Maki reflects on his situation and realizes that he will eventually have to provide Yumi with a proper answer regarding his feelings. Yumi reaches out and takes Maki's hand, suggesting they should hold hands just to stay warm because of the cold weather. Maki holds her hand and agrees that they are only doing this because of the cold. Yuu suddenly jumps out and shouts a loud morning greeting to both of them. Maki and Yumi are both startled and jump in surprise at her sudden appearance. Yuu giggles and says she is happy to see the two of them getting along so well. Maki and Yumi struggle to give her a normal morning greeting in return. Yumi quickly stammers that they aren't actually that close to each other. Yuu tells them that she didn't mean her comment in a strange way. Yuu notices that Yumi's face has turned bright red and points it out, causing Yumi to shout at her to stop looking. Maki reflects on the fact that despite everything that happened before and after the cultural festival, things finally seem to have settled between them. Maki watches his friends and considers how their presence has significantly changed the atmosphere of the class. Yuu pulls Yumi into a hug and asks Maki if he thinks Yumi is cute. Maki looks directly at Yumi and agrees that she is indeed cute. Yumi is left speechless and blushes deeply at his honest compliment. Yumi yells at Yuu to shut up while Nina approaches with her phone in hand. Nina refers to Maki as the blessed class representative and mentions that there is still something to talk about regarding the festival. Maki informs Nina that he is not actually the class representative. Nina seems surprised, but continues the conversation, admitting that she still can't get over their success at the event. A finger points toward a trophy displayed on a shelf, referencing the high praise their class project received. Their exhibition earned unexpectedly high recognition, resulting in the class winning a special award trophy. Maki realizes that he has become even more of an outsider to his classmates because he worked so hard on the festival and is known to be close with a girl. He tells himself that he no longer cares what they suspect. Two boys in the class walk through the corridor while discussing heading to their next elective class. Maki watches Yumi and reflects on how many things happened in a very short time. Now that everything has finally settled, he decides that he wants to confess his true feelings to her. Maki worries that his plan might be too obvious, but he acknowledges that this will be his very first time ever confessing to someone. Maki stares at his phone and resolves to confess to Yumi on the 24th. He holds onto his phone and silently hopes that she will be free that day. Yumi looks at her phone screen while Yuu sits beside her. A text message notification appears with Maki saying he just thought of something and stating that he is free on the 24th. A single text message appears on the screen in response, simply calling the sender a pervert. Maki reads the blunt reply on his phone and is left completely stunned and confused, wondering why he received such a reaction. Maki sends a message asking Yumi why she called him a pervert, explaining that he was only thinking about hanging out. Yumi replies by asking if he meant hanging out at his house. Maki suggests that they could bake a cake together if she wanted. Yumi is surprised and asks if he can really bake cakes, noting that it sounds amazing. Yumi stares intensely at the screen of her phone with wide, focused eyes. Maki is left in a state of absolute shock when a text from Yumi arrives. She apologizes and says she cannot make it because she already has an appointment. Maki looks confused and asks about a party that was mentioned. Yu explains that they have already reserved a public hall for the event. Nina adds that the school is promoting it heavily, causing news of the gathering to spread to other schools as well. Nina suggests the party is just a way to keep students from getting too stressed over university exams. Yumi and Yu admire how sharp she is, while Maki remembers them discussing this at the start of the second term. Yumi asks Maki if he really didn't apply for the event. He crouches down and admits that at the time he didn't think it had anything to do with him. Nina notes that it is a shame and wonders if he can still submit an application, but Maki says it is already too late. He rubs his head and blames his own forgetfulness for the mistake. Maki tells the three girls to go ahead and enjoy the party without him. Yumi looks at him with a serious and unwavering gaze. Maki thinks to himself that he has plenty of other opportunities to confess his feelings. Nina tells him not to jump to conclusions and mentions that she is planning on doing a two-top that day, which leaves him confused. Yu asks Nina why she isn't coming with them to the hall. Nina smugly explains that she's going to hang out with her boyfriend since he confessed to her recently. Maki, Yumi, and Yu are all left staring at Nina with blank, wide-eyed expressions of total disbelief. Maki reflects on how this is a first for their group. Nina asks if they want the details before laughing and flatly refusing to give them any. Nina notes that many people have found the courage to change and move forward. Maki watches her and decides that he should also take a similar step forward. Yumi explains that the 24th is no longer an option because of her appointment, but she still wants to move their relationship forward. Maki asks what she means as she mentions that she and Yu discussed a delicate matter. Yumi notes that Takabana Girls' School will also be participating in the upcoming event. Maki is surprised by the news. Yumi explains that they didn't know it would turn out this way, but they were advised not to make any sudden cancellations or changes to their plans. Maki realizes the situation is tricky since they might all run into each other at the party. Yumi decides that since they already paid the entry fee, they will just go eat as much food as possible and leave early. Yumi adds that she really wanted to taste the cake Maki offered to bake. Maki blushes and tells her she can try his baking any other time. Maki reflects on the day Yumi leaned in close to him. He admits to himself that ever since that day he always ends up looking at Yumi's lips. Maki stares intently at Yumi until she notices and asks what is wrong. He quickly claims it is nothing while she continues to look back at him. Yumi leans in close and tells Maki that his lips look very dry. Maki is caught off guard by her sudden proximity. Yumi warns that his lips will become chapped if he leaves them like that. She grabs Maki's chin and asks him to let her have a better look. Yumi pulls out a tube of lip balm and tells Maki to show her his face. He is confused by her actions as they stand together outside. Maki panics as he realizes that using her lip balm would count as an indirect kiss. Yumi ignores his hesitation and pulls him closer, insisting on helping him. Yumi holds Maki's chin firmly and applies the lip balm to his lips. Maki closes his eyes and blushes deeply during the intimate moment. Yumi finishes and tells Maki that she is all done. He is left completely stunned by the experience and manages to offer a small thanks in return. Maki nervously asks if that was really okay. Yumi teases him, thinking to herself that he wants her to say it just to make him blush. Maki is completely flustered and asks if that counts as an indirect kiss. Yumi looks away and tells him not to worry about it. Yumi holds up the lip balm and reveals that this was actually its very first use. Yumi explains that Maki's lips always look terrible, so she has been wanting to give the balm to him for a long time. Maki realizes she played a trick on him. Yumi clarifies that an indirect kiss is perfectly fine as long as it's with someone she really cares about. She asks Maki what he thinks and he struggles to find an answer. Yumi smiles and says she believes it can be something special if the other person doesn't dislike it. Maki quietly agrees with her. They arrive at the gate of a house. Yumi says goodbye and promises to see him tomorrow before heading inside. Yumi calls out that she is home as she enters the house. Maki stands outside and watches her go. Maki looks at the lip balm in his palm and thinks about the 24th. He realizes he will be spending that day alone, but tells himself there is nothing he can do about it. Maki starts walking away with his hands in his pockets. Maki reflects on the significance of the 24th, noting that it will mark exactly 1 year since a major event in his life. Maki walks down the street and remembers that it has been exactly a year since his parents got divorced. A flashback shows Maki as a younger boy peeking through a doorway. He watches his parents sitting in silence and wonders why things always have to be this way, admitting he never knew the true reason for their split. Young Maki looks up in shock as his mother apologizes to him. He remembers her asking his father why he never says anything. Maki sits at his desk as the school bell rings. He thinks to himself that he ended up remembering everything about his past. Yumi walks up to Maki's desk and asks if he is coming to the cafeteria. He explains that he brought his own lunch, which Yumi finds very hard working. Yu announces that they are eating udon today. Nina asks Maki why he doesn't join them anyway, but he admits he would feel awkward sitting there without buying any food. Nina stands with Yu and Yumi, asking if it is just her imagination or if the two of them have been spending a lot more time together lately. Maki and Yumi are both surprised by the question. Yu explains that this is actually a way to protect her. Maki is confused, so Yu clarifies that being alone caused too many people to approach and talk to her. Nina suggests that Yu is more noticeable because Christmas is approaching. She notes that since people have given up hope on Asanagi, the attention has shifted to Yu. Maki realizes what she means. Yumi asks for clarification and Nina points out that she already has the class representative by her side. Yumi is completely shocked by the remark. Maki wonders if everyone in school thinks they are a couple. Yumi insists that Maki is just a friend, but Yu dismisses her claim as usual. Yumi gets annoyed and asks what everyone thinks about her. Yu explains that while most people who approach her just want to talk, there are some real weirdos. Maki asks what kind of things those strange people say to her. Yu recounts a scary encounter with a guy she never talked to who seriously asked her to find a more private place together. Yumi agrees that it sounds terrifying. The three girls wave goodbye as they head off to the cafeteria. Maki watches them leave and thinks about how troublesome the situation seems to be. Maki sits alone at his desk to eat and reflects on how long it has been since he last had lunch by himself. Suddenly, a hand pats him on the shoulder and someone calls out to him. Maki turns around and is met by a tall student who gives off an incredibly menacing aura. He panics and shouts in total shock. The imposing student tells Maki that he wants to have a few words with him and asks him to follow for a moment. Maki looks extremely nervous as he listens. The name Yumi is shouted loudly as the scene cuts to a white void filled with intense speed lines. Maki identifies the boy as Seki from his class. Seki asks if Maki knows who he is just to be sure. Seki introduces himself as the pitcher for the baseball club. Maki simply asks what Seki wants with him. Seki hesitates and struggles to speak while Maki waits for him to get to the point. Seki finally admits that he needs some advice regarding Amami. Maki realizes what is going on and asks Seki what he wants. Seki begins to explain his feelings. Seki confesses he has been in love with Amami since the entrance ceremony, but he has been too focused on baseball to do anything about it until now. Seki explains that he doesn't know how to confess or start dating. He tells Maki that he previously thought just watching her was enough to make him happy. Seki notes that they only have 4 months left in the same class, so he can't just keep watching her from a distance anymore. Seki admits he wants to at least confess his feelings since they might not be in the same class next year. Maki points out that Amami is in the cafeteria right now and asks why Seki doesn't just go talk to her, wondering why he is being brought into this. Seki begs Maki for his help. He mentions that Maki is good friends with Asanagi and says he wants to be friends with Maki so he can talk to Amami in a more natural way. Maki puts up a hand and flatly declines the request. Maki explains that he doesn't think he can help because Amami is his friend. Seki is left completely shocked by the blunt refusal. Maki watches Seki's intense reaction and nervously wonders if the other boy is going to punch him. Maki reflects on how much has happened between Yumi and Yu around the time of the cultural festival. He knows they are still working on becoming truly good friends. Maki acknowledges that Seki is serious about his feelings. He doesn't think Yumi or Amami would be mean to him, but he still has reservations. Seki lets out a bright laugh and exclaims that Maki's reaction was exactly what he expected. Maki looks away with a troubled expression, apologizing to Seki in his head, while thinking about how bad the timing is after all the recent drama. Seki rubs the back of his head and admits he understands that his request must have seemed very sudden coming from a complete stranger. He laughs off his embarrassment and says he would likely have done the same thing in Maki's position, though Maki starts to clarify that the reason for his refusal is different. Seki tells Maki not to worry about it and admits he shouldn't have asked for such a big favor in the first place. He thanks Maki for taking the time to listen before turning to walk away while Maki offers one last apology for not being able to help. Seki resolves to put in his own effort and try asking Emami to the party himself. Maki watches him go and gives a simple acknowledgement. Seki flashes a wide grin and tells Maki that he actually has a much better opinion of him now. He notes that while Maki looks gentle on the outside, he wasn't afraid to firmly reject the proposal. Maki watches in silence as the baseball player walks down the path between the trees. Maki watches Seki's retreating figure and picks up a baseball from the ground. He thinks to himself that if the timing hadn't been so terrible, the two of them might have actually become friends. Maki looks ahead with a thoughtful and steady gaze. A memory of Maki as a young boy surfaces, showing the moment a teacher introduced him to a new class. He thinks about the concept of friends while gripping a baseball tightly in his hand. Young Maki looks around his new classroom with a hesitant expression while his new classmates stare back at him from their desks. The memory continues as Maki's name is called out. In the flashback, Maki returns home to find his mother in the kitchen. She welcomes him back and asks if he had a good time at school, and he gives a quiet confirmation. Maki reflects on his childhood, remembering how his father was constantly being transferred for work. He recalls having to change schools more times than he can count, never knowing when the next move would happen. A hand reaches out toward the young boy in his memory. Maki remembers that his mother was always waiting for him at home regardless of how late his father worked or how much he disliked going to school. Back in the present, Yumi asks Maki what he and Seki were talking about. Maki looks at her while thinking to himself about how much he truly liked his home. Yumi mentions that she saw Maki and Seki going somewhere together while she was at the cafeteria. Maki is surprised that she noticed them. Maki assumes that Yumi and her friends find Seki to be a strange guy. Yumi agrees with the assessment, noting that the topic is a bit awkward. Yumi asks if Maki doesn't find him odd since the boy only seems to care about his club activities. Maki points out that they are different in every possible way, which makes them an interesting pair. Yumi laughs about the contrast between Maki being in the go-home club and Seki being in the baseball club. Maki reflects on his realization that he can no longer be satisfied by just watching Yumi from a distance. Maki decides that he wants to finally tell Yumi how he feels. He calls out her name and she turns to look at him. Maki asks Yumi if there is any way for them to meet up once the party is over. Yumi acknowledges that he is attending the event but waits in silence for him to continue. Maki explains that because it will be Christmas Eve, he was wondering if they could see each other after the festivities conclude. He mentions that he only wants to meet for a short time because there is something specific he needs to tell her. In the background, Christmas decorations are visible on the school building. Maki suddenly panics and tells Yumi not to start calling him a pervert. He adds that he doesn't expect her to stay the night at his place again or anything similar to that. Yumi agrees that they can meet, but she points out that the party won't end until 8 or 9 at night. She asks if he is comfortable with meeting that late. Maki gives a firm confirmation that the late hour is fine with him. Yumi looks down with a deep blush on her face as she processes the plan. Maki tells Yumi to make sure she informs Mrs. Sora that she will be home a bit late on the 24th so her mother doesn't worry. Yumi agrees and says she will also tell her mother that Maki will be coming over. The two of them walk together while holding hands and Maki gives a quiet acknowledgement to her response. Yumi looks up at her house as she finally arrives home for the day. Her mother welcomes her back as she steps through the front door. Yumi stands in the entryway for a moment without saying anything. In the kitchen, Yumi addresses her mother and says she wants to talk about plans for the 24th. Her mother assumes that she will be attending the party with Yu that night. Yumi confirms the party plans but starts to explain what will happen afterward. Maki walks down the street in the evening and hears a notification sound from his bag. He looks around in surprise. He checks his phone and reads a message from Yumi. She tells him that she informed her mother she would be home very late on the 24th. Maki is completely stunned by the contents of the message. Maki panics and wonders if the message has a lewd or deep meaning behind it. Back at her own house, Yumi crouches on the floor and covers her face in total embarrassment. Yumi looks thoughtful as she recalls telling her mother she might be staying out quite late. Maki sits on the edge of his bed in the middle of the night, unable to sleep, as he continues to think about the upcoming date. He tries to convince himself that Yumi just meant he won't get in trouble even if they stay out late together. He blushes at the thought and tries to settle his racing mind. Maki decides he should stop overthinking and heads out of his room. He stops when he notices his mother is already home and sitting on the sofa. Maki welcomes his mother home and she offers a greeting in return while holding a cigarette. Maki notes that it has been a long time since his mother last smoked in the house. She apologizes and explains that she has been able to relax lately because her job has been especially stressful this year. His mother adds that this stress is nothing compared to last year. Maki remembers that at this exact time the previous year she was going through her divorce. Maki starts to bring up the 24th and his mother listens with a calm expression. Maki turns his head slightly and remains silent for a moment with a small blush on his cheeks. Maki's mother quickly guesses that he has invited Yumi to come over to their house that day. Maki stands by the door looking flustered while she points a finger in realization. Maki admits that he did invite her and notes they might be playing until late. He tells his mother not to worry and says he will phone Yumi's mother later to let her know it is fine. Maki wonders when his mother exchanged phone numbers with Yumi's mother. His mother admits she still doesn't know how he managed to become friends with such a cute girl. Maki's mother asks if Yumi intends to spend the night again like before. Maki immediately denies it, but she points out that the date is Christmas Eve. Maki tries to stay calm and argues that they are just two friends hanging out the day before Christmas, not going on a date. His mother laughs at his defensive reaction. Yuu cheers happily with her eyes closed and a wide grin on her face. Yuu asks Maki if it is true that she is also invited to his Christmas party. In the background, Yumi panics and tries to interject. Yuu excitedly brings up meeting at Maki's house on the evening of the 24th. Maki is left speechless with wide eyes as a flashback to the previous night begins. During the flashback, Yumi sits on a stool and tells Yuu over the phone that she has something to do after the party. She explains that she won't be able to walk her home that day, which leaves Yuu surprised. Yuu asks if the reason involves Maki. Yumi explains that she just wanted to let her know in advance so she wouldn't have to head home alone. Yuu teases Yumi for being so lovey-dovey. Yumi blushes and reminds her that they aren't dating yet. Yuu points out that they are still choosing to meet on Christmas Eve. Yumi laughs it off and insists the situation isn't what she thinks. Yumi argues that it is common for friends to meet the day before Christmas and even tells Yuu that she is welcome to join them if she wants. Yuu asks Yumi over the phone if she is sure about her decision. Yumi listens from her room with a small smile as they continue their late-night conversation. Maki thinks about the events of the previous night and realizes how they ended up here. Yumi finishes explaining the situation while Nina and Yuu walk behind them. Nina asks Yumi if she isn't meeting her boyfriend on the 24th, noting that the plan sounds like fun. Yumi looks flustered and closes her eyes in frustration. Maki watches her and wonders about the strange feeling between them. Yumi looks down thoughtfully as they walk. Maki realizes that she was also feeling nervous and likely couldn't handle the pressure of the situation. Maki decides that they shouldn't rush things if that is how Yumi feels. He admits to himself that he feels disappointed by the turn of events. Yumi keeps her head down and offers Maki a sincere apology for how things turned out. Maki looks at her with a surprised expression. Maki tells Yumi not to worry about it. He explains that he has never actually been to a Christmas party with friends before, so he is genuinely looking forward to the event. Maki gives Yumi a warm smile and says he is really happy. He points out that the most important part is that they are still meeting each other that day. Yumi looks up at him, clearly surprised by his positive attitude. Yumi gets a stern look on her face and pokes Maki sharply in the back, making him cry out in pain. Yuu waves goodbye as she and Nina head off. Nina mentions that she would join the party if she ever broke up with her boyfriend, but she insists that won't be happening anytime soon. Maki and Yumi walk past the school athletic field and notice the baseball club's morning practice. Yumi smiles happily while Maki looks over at the players. Seki runs over in his baseball uniform and grabs Maki by the shoulder to get his attention. Seki greets Maki and explains that he remembered something important he forgot to mention earlier. Maki looks nervous as the baseball player leans in close. Seki says he wants to talk about Asanagi. Maki is confused by the topic as he watches Yumi, Nina, and Yuu walk together in the distance. Seki explains that while Yumi was always known for being cute and cool, her popularity has exploded recently. He tells Maki that several guys have even been asking for an introduction to her. Yumi watches them from a distance with a curious expression. Maki explains that he refused to introduce Yumi to the other guys because they aren't his acquaintances. Seki asks him what he did after that. Seki encourages Maki not to let his guard down and to go for a confession since he hasn't done it yet. He gives him a firm thumbs up as he speaks. Maki realizes that Seki's advice is exactly on the mark. Seki smiles and tells him to take the words as advice from a fellow male friend. Yumi approaches the two and asks Maki what is happening. Nina and Yu watch the interaction from a short distance away. Yumi offers Seki some praise for his morning baseball practice. Seki becomes flustered and points out that the two of them are not usually seen together. Maki and Seki both fall into an awkward silence as they stand side by side in front of Yumi. Yumi turns back to join Nina and Yu as the three girls continue walking. Maki tells Seki that he should also go for what he wants. Seki looks down and adjusts his baseball cap in total embarrassment. Back in the classroom, Maki rests his head in his hands and laments that he couldn't confess on his planned day. He thinks about how he and Yumi are already close friends even though rushing is a bad idea. Maki slumps onto his desk and reflects on how things haven't changed much since their arcade trip. He reminds himself that he was the one who insisted they should take things slowly. Maki suddenly has a realization and pops his head up with a wide-eyed expression. Maki looks at his phone and decides that next time he doesn't want to keep their outings a secret from their classmates. He notes that they have still only gone out once. Maki worries that he might be acting too desperate. He admits to himself that he really wants to kiss her. Maki feels dizzy and overwhelmed by his own thoughts as he hunches over his phone at his desk. Yumi suddenly appears at Maki's desk and urgently asks him to listen. Both of them have their phones in hand as she starts to speak. Yumi asks Maki if he was busy, but she reassures him that she just finished her own work. Maki gives a simple confirmation. Maki tells her it wasn't anything important. He secretly admits to himself that he was actually trying to figure out how to ask her on a date. Yumi shows him a new film on her phone and suggests they watch it together next Friday. She asks if he has already seen it. Yumi pauses and adds that she was also thinking about something else. Yumi asks Maki if he would like to go out with her next Saturday. Maki stares at her in total surprise. She wonders if he means meeting at his house or going somewhere else. Maki gathers his courage and says he was thinking about making their meeting an actual date. Yumi remains silent for a moment before blushing deeply and agreeing to the idea. Yumi gets defensive about her excitement for the mushroom shark film, insisting she isn't an idiot. Maki agrees that any film can be considered a work of art. Yumi sets the date for next Saturday and points her finger at Maki, telling him to ensure he is also free next Friday afternoon. Yumi reminds him of their agreement to do things properly next time. She explains that she needs to go out and buy specific clothes for their special occasion. Yumi vows to look as cute as possible for their date. She tells Maki that he also needs to find some stylish clothes to wear. Maki admits he doesn't really feel like dressing up, but he quickly gives in when Yumi looks at him. While eating his lunch, Maki reflects on his initial plan to go shopping with Yumi right after school. Yu excitedly shows Maki a selection of clothes on her phone, telling him that she thinks they would look great on him. Maki continues to eat his meal while she talks. Nina dismisses a gray option while Yu suggests that a light blue color would suit Maki better. Yumi admits that she actually likes the current selection as the girls continue to browse for him. Yumi notes that since all of Maki's clothes are black, almost any color would suit him well. She points out a pair of jeans on her phone, and though she worries they might be a bit expensive, she believes it is always worth investing in a good pair. Yumi asks Maki what his budget is for the shopping trip. He nervously explains that he only has 20,000 yen and hopes to buy everything he needs with that amount. Maki watches the girls and reflects on how much they seem to enjoy talking about fashion. In the background, Yu and Nina excitedly discuss combining a jacket with different inner wear for his potential outfit. Yumi notes that it would be much easier to decide if she could actually see the clothes on Maki. Nina points out that going shopping together specifically for a date outfit would be weird because the shopping trip itself would count as a date. Nina bluntly asks the pair if they are dumb for not realizing the implication of their plans. Yumi and Maki are left staring back at her with blank expressions. Yu sips her juice and admits that she really likes the idea of seeing Maki try on different clothes. Nina asks Yu why she doesn't just go along with them on the shopping trip. Yu is taken aback by the suggestion. Yu worries that she would be intruding on their date if she joined them. She explains that while they always let her hang out with them, she feels hesitant about this specific occasion. Yumi considers the idea and decides that Yuu's taste in clothes would actually be very useful and that she would appreciate the help. Maki watches them and realizes that Yuu secretly wants to go despite her protests. Yuu excitedly decides to join the group and asks if she can also try on some outfits for the upcoming party. Yumi agrees to the plan while the two cheer in the background. Yuu asks Maki if he minds her coming along and he assures her that he doesn't mind at all. Yuu cheers loudly about the shopping trip. Nina warns her not to get too carried away, pointing out that if she runs out of money she won't be able to attend the actual Christmas party. Yuu is struck with a sudden look of panic as she considers her finances. Nina remarks that she finally sees the reality of the situation. Maki asks if Yuu's situation is really that bad. Yumi confirms that it is, explaining that Yuu is already burdened by the cost of supplementary lessons on top of the party expenses. Yuu clings to Yumi and begs for help with her studies to avoid taking extra lessons. Nina asks Maki if he feels confident about passing the upcoming exams, but he seems uncertain about that choice of words. Maki suggests that if he didn't have any friends he would simply spend all of his free time studying at his desk. Yuu listens, but admits she isn't quite sure if she agrees with that logic. Maki points out that normally a person would get tired of doing the same thing for a whole month. The girls all nod and agree that they would definitely get exhausted. Maki reveals that he actually doesn't get tired of it, so he just spends all his spare time studying. The three girls collectively gulp as they process his intense work ethic. Maki declares that he is more than ready for his exams. Nina wonders if he is being too hard on himself, but Yumi finds his dedication admirable and says she will try to follow his example. Yuu mentions that she is looking forward to seeing how Maki and Yumi get along during their date. Maki says he doesn't mind her presence, then notices a hand tapping on his shoulder. Maki turns around to find Seki standing there. The baseball player asks Maki if he has a moment to talk. Seki asks if the conversation is going to be about him. Maki clarifies that it is actually about someone else and gestures toward Yuu, causing Maki to let out a surprised sound. Seki offers a quick thanks before running off. Maki decides to leave him alone, remembering that Seki intended to make his own effort to approach Mami. Yumi looks back toward Maki as she stands with Yuu and Nina. Seki suddenly approaches the group and calls out Amami's name. Yumi is surprised by the sudden interruption and asks what is wrong as Seki pulls her along. Seki stands before Yuu at her desk. She turns to him and gives a simple response, waiting to hear what he has to say. Maki watches from a distance and predicts that Seki is about to ask Yuu to go to the party with him. Yumi sneaks up behind Maki and asks him what is going on. Yumi and Nina realize that Seki's sudden approach is related to the upcoming Christmas party. Seki shouts at the top of his lungs, asking Amami if she will go out with him. Nina notes that Yuu was originally planning to go with them, but says the choice is ultimately hers, while Maki and Yumi wonder how she will respond. Yuu stares back at Seki with a wide-eyed, stunned expression after his sudden outburst. Seki blushes intensely and begins to sweat as he waits for her response, realizing the weight of what he just shouted. Nina whispers to Maki that Seki didn't actually invite her to the party like they expected. Maki notes that Seki's original intention was definitely different from what he just said. Yuu remains silent for a moment before looking down and offering a blunt apology to Seki. Seki is caught off guard by the immediate rejection and stammers out his own apology in return. Seki turns and sprints out of the classroom in total embarrassment while Maki and Yumi watch him go. Nina remarks on how bold it was for Seki to confess in front of so many people. Other students in the classroom begin to whisper about the dramatic scene. Yuu admits she wasn't expecting a confession, and Nina agrees that she was also surprised. Maki watches the two girls from his desk. Maki listens to the other students' chatter about Seki, noting that his attempt to act popular backfired and made him look immature. Outside, Seki walks away by himself. Yumi looks back at Maki and announces that she is heading out as well. Yumi gives Maki a small smile and says she will see him later. Seki sits alone and dejected in the shade under the school's outdoor stairs. Maki finds Seki and calls out his name. The two sit in silence for a long moment as they look at one another. Maki points out that Seki clearly rushed into things. Seki grabs his head in frustration and shouts that he knows he messed everything up. Maki asks if he wasn't just planning to invite her to the party. Seki yells back that the party was indeed his original plan. Seki yells in frustration and shows Maki his hand where he had written the invitation phrase to help him remember. He admits that he practiced saying it so many times but still messed up when it mattered. Seki explains that his mind went completely blank the moment he stood in front of Amami. He tells Maki that by the time he came to his senses, he had already blurted out the wrong thing. The two boys sit together in a heavy and awkward silence under the school stairs. Seki breaks the silence and asks Maki if any of their classmates were talking about what happened. Maki looks back at him with a flat expression. Seki buries his head in his arms and groans that he doesn't want to go back to the classroom. Maki watches his friends despair from his spot on the steps. The school building sits quietly as students go about their business in the classrooms. Maki reports that while the others were talking, he didn't understand a single thing they were saying. He notes that it seemed like they were discussing an entirely different topic. Seki looks at Maki and tells him that he might actually be a good guy. Maki turns away and remarks that being gentle is not the same thing as being a good person. Seki lets out a loud and genuine laugh at Maki's comment. Maki asks Seki if he plans on giving up on Amami now that he's been rejected. Seki remains quiet as they both stare out at the school grounds. Seki admits that moving on is easier said than done. He explains that even though he was completely rejected, he really likes her making it very difficult for him to just walk away. Seki expects his classmates to make fun of him for a while with a bunch of lame jokes. Maki listens as they continue to sit with their backs to the school. Maki states that he doesn't like those kinds of jokes either. He says that making fun of someone's feelings and teasing them repeatedly is something he finds unpleasant. Seki suggests that the best thing to do is read the situation and just ignore the people who tease him. He then pauses and looks at Maki curiously. Seki wonders out loud why he would even want to hang out with guys who behave that way in the first place. Maki watches him with a thoughtful look. Maki gives a gentle smile. Seki admits that returning to the classroom will be difficult, but he is glad he has a friend who understands him and did not laugh. He resolves to do his best while Maki reflects on how he put Amami in a difficult situation. Maki watches Seki walk away and asks if he is really sure that he wants to be friends with him. Seki stops and looks back, asking if Maki has a problem with the idea or simply doesn't want to be his friend. Seki explains that friends are meant to hang out and talk about many things. Maki listens and eventually agrees to the offer. Seki suggests that since they are already friends, they should drop the formalities and speak more casually with one another. Seki smiles and tells Maki that he is counting on him. The two boys shake hands as Maki acknowledges the friendship and addresses Nozomu by his first name. While at the shopping center, Maki explains to Yumi that Seki wants Amami to forget about the awkward incident that took place. Yumi acknowledges the information. Yumi tells Yu that Seki is sorry for making her feel uncomfortable and embarrassed. Yu responds with surprise while she continues eating her snack. Yu asks if they are talking about her. Maki notes that he is just happy to see her in such a good mood. Yu notices a closing down sale and gets excited. Yumi tells Maki to let Seki know he shouldn't worry because Yu is already accustomed to those kinds of situations, though Maki finds the explanation a bit complicated. Yu excitedly announces that they will be busy today and tells Maki to lead the way so they can check out the latest trends. She adds that they need to plan the most efficient route for their shopping. Yu holds up a discount coupon and suggests they go eat yakiniku once they have finished shopping. Maki and Yumi are both very excited by the proposal. Yu grabs Yumi's arm and pulls her along as she shouts for them to get started on their outing. A man in a suit stands in the background holding a briefcase. Maki remains silent as he watches from the foreground. Maki, Yumi, and Yu walk together into the Giotto building. A man with a weary expression watches them go. A woman nearby asks him if there is something wrong. The man in the suit is addressed as Mr. Mihara. He stands with a woman in a sweater while looking toward the group of teenagers. Maki looks away and claims that it is nothing. The trio enters the building. Yu asks if their first stop is the second-hand clothing store. Yumi confirms the plan while Maki tells Yu to make sure she doesn't get lost. Maki reflects on how it has been 2 months since their last visit. He remembers having a good time with Yumi at a burger restaurant and a game center. Maki decides it is better not to think about their previous trip. He looks distressed as he walks behind the two girls. Maki remembers an embarrassing incident that he can't even describe in words. A series of memories show Yu stumbling and him reaching out to help her. In the present, Maki grabs Yu's arm to steady her. He tells her to watch out as she nearly loses her balance. Yu is caught by surprise and looks up at Maki. She calls out his name while he watches her with a serious expression. Yu remarks that Maki's hands are quite big. They stand close together while Yumi watches the interaction from the side. Maki notes that men's hands are typically like this and mentions that Nozoma's hands are even more chapped than his own. Yuu asks if he uses hand cream, but he admits that he usually doesn't. Yumi moves in close between the two of them with a suspicious look on her face. Yumi asks if it isn't about time they continue with their shopping. Both Maki and Yuu are startled by her sudden intervention. Yuu apologizes to Maki, explaining she didn't notice the situation and is usually that way with everyone. Maki offers his own apology to Yumi, admitting he was being inconsiderate. Yumi continues to look grumpy as they walk through the building. Yumi looks pensive as she tells Maki that she isn't angry and understands that he would have done the same thing in his position. Maki suddenly reaches out and firmly grabs Yumi's hand as they stand together in the shopping center. Maki asks Yumi what is wrong and reminds her that she was the one who initially said she wanted to hold his hand. Yumi looks away with a slight blush and decides that holding hands is fine with her after all. Yuu puts on heart-shaped sunglasses and jokingly complains that the couple is so dazzling she can't even look at them. She calls out to them as she starts to wander away. The group arrives at a vintage clothing store. Yumi suggests they start by looking for a top and Yuu cheers in agreement. Yuu picks out a large coat and asks Yumi for her opinion. She notes that Maki might look like a child because it is too baggy for his height, but Yuu wonders if looking cute is better. Yuu suggests checking the ladies section and tries another item on Maki. He notices the shop assistant smiling at him and wonders what her intentions are. Yuu and Yumi enter a serious debate about Maki's style. Yuu prefers short outerwear while Yumi argues for an oversized look to make him seem taller, suggesting a white knit sweater to complete the aligned silhouette. Maki is amazed by the girls' extensive fashion knowledge as their discussion continues. He decides to just remember the key points so they can finish and leave as soon as possible. Once they decide on the outerwear, the girls immediately dash off to find clothes for Maki to wear underneath. He feels like he has become their dress-up doll as they pull him along. Maki tries on a new jacket that is not black. Yumi and Yuu both agree that they like the look and comment on how cute he looks in the outfit they chose. Yumi asks Maki for his thoughts on the new jacket. He admits that he likes it because it is very warm and decides the choice is good enough. The girls announce that they still need to buy pants and shoes. They immediately drag Maki off to find the next part of his outfit. Maki sits alone on a bench looking completely exhausted from the long shopping trip. Maki thinks to himself that using his brain to buy clothes is quite exhausting even though he was just a mannequin. Yuu and Yumi announce they are going to look for some accessories. Maki asks if he can go to the toilet first. Maki walks through the building thinking about how he ended up buying something for every part of his body. He notes that he won't be embarrassed to wear the new clothes since he'll be with Yumi, but he wonders what she is planning to wear herself. Maki reflects that Yumi would look cute just wearing a hoodie and jeans. He continues to wonder about her plans until he suddenly bumps into someone. Papers fly into the air as the two people collide in the hallway. Maki quickly apologizes and admits he wasn't paying attention. He crouches down to help pick up the fallen documents. The other person also apologizes and says he was being careless. The man looks at Maki and realizes who he is. Maki looks up in total surprise as he recognizes the man as well. Maki identifies the man as his father. His father remarks that it has been a long time since they last saw each other before the summer holidays. Maki gives a quiet confirmation. His father apologizes for not spending more time together. He explains that he has been very busy lately with the rebuilding of the station building. Maki tells his father not to worry, noting that he understands managing a construction company is complicated. His father says he is heading back to the office for a meeting, and Maki asks if he is overworking himself. His father tells him not to worry. He explains that he takes regular physical exams and is confident in his own stamina. His father asks if Maki is out shopping. Maki gives a simple yes and mentions that he wanted to buy a pair of sneakers. Maki's father acknowledges the answer. He then asks if Maki has made any friends yet. His father recalls their meeting in the summer when Maki told him he barely had any friends. He admits he was wondering if that situation had changed at all since then. Maki looks away and claims that nothing has changed. He tells his father that he is still quite shy. His father remains silent for a moment before giving a skeptical response to Maki's claim. Maki's father offers an apology for asking such a personal question. Maki tells him that he doesn't mind but reminds his father that he should probably be heading back to the office soon. His father wonders if it would be okay to talk a little longer before a voice calls out to him. He acknowledges that he needs to leave and says goodbye to Maki. A woman walks toward them and addresses Maki's father. He apologizes to her while Maki watches in silence. She mentions that she came because he hadn't arrived at the office yet. His father introduces the woman as Minato, one of his employees. He tells Minato that the boy is his son Maki. Minato processes the information as she looks at the teenager. Maki stares back at Minato with a neutral expression. Minato gives her full name as Kyoka Minato. Maki offers a polite greeting in return and introduces himself as Maki Mihara. Maki looks at Minato's business card in his hand. He notices how busy his father seems and decides that it is time for him to leave as well, and his father agrees. Maki says his final goodbye and heads back to meet the girls. He finds Yumi and Yu waiting for him in the busy shopping area. Yu tells Maki that he is very late and mentions she was getting worried since he wasn't responding to any of her messages. Maki offers a quick apology for the delay. Yumi teases Maki by saying she was almost ready to call for a lost child announcement. Maki realizes that would have been an incredibly embarrassing experience for him. Yu declares that she is hungry and proposes going to an inexpensive yakiniku restaurant for dinner. Maki remains quiet as he follows behind them. Yumi asks Maki if he managed to get everything he needed or if he forgot anything. He reassures her that he is finished with his shopping. Maki reflects on his parents' divorce while a memory of his mother leaving the house flashes through his mind. He thinks about how much he wanted to know the actual reason they split up. Maki recalls that he chose not to ask his mother because he didn't want to upset her, asking his father instead during their infrequent meetings. He remembers that his father only ever took the blame for everything. They arrive at the entrance of a yakiniku restaurant. Maki thinks about how his parents were always busy and likely didn't spend enough time with each other. He decides that the divorce was a decision they made on their own and that there was no reason to involve a child in the matter. Maki thinks to himself that there is no point in being depressed and notes the divorce went smoothly. He remembers his father asking if he has made any friends. Maki looks at Yumi, Nina, and Nozomu and wonders why he didn't tell his father the truth about them. He admits that he feels bad for everyone. Yumi calls out to Maki to get his attention. Yumi asks if Maki also wants to order from the drink bar. Maki gives a quiet confirmation. Yumi asks Maki if he is tired, but he insists that he is fine. Yu asks if they are meant to order their food using the touch panel, and Maki confirms that is correct. Yu and Yumi excitedly decide to order beef tongue and kalbi. Maki notes that Yumi always enjoys eating a lot. Maki watches Yumi and reflects that if their relationship continues, he will eventually have to tell his father about her. Maki stares ahead with a stunned expression. Yu presents her ice cream as the first course. Yumi reminds her that she isn't a child and warns that she will be full before she knows it, but Yu continues to enjoy her treat. Yumi points out that Maki mixed cola with white soda and asks how that is any different from acting like a child. Maki argues that the situations are not the same. Yu whispers an idea to Yumi about creating their own cola float. Yumi looks surprised and asks if she is being serious. Maki lets out a laugh and wonders if anyone else has ever tried that. He notes that it would be embarrassing if they were the first ones to do it. Maki watches Yumi and Yu smile and thinks that a lot of good things will happen this Christmas as long as everyone is by his side. Yumi and Yu cheer happily as Maki prepares to eat. He decides to only think about positive things and tells everyone to dig in. Maki reflects that this is what he thought at the time. Maki holds his head and looks deeply troubled. Maki looks in the mirror and uses a comb to try and fix his hair. Maki messes with his hair with both hands and looks extremely distressed. Maki leans over the bathroom sink and laments that he doesn't know which hairstyle is the best choice. Maki checks the clock and sees it is 9 in the morning. He notes that the date is at 11 and decides he shouldn't waste any more time on his hair. The doorbell rings and Maki wonders who it is since he is busy. He reaches out to answer the intercom. A voice over the intercom explains that it is cold outside and asks to be let in. Maki opens the door to find Yumi standing there. She offers a greeting and announces that she has already arrived. Yumi repeats her greeting and explains it is a normal way to say hello. Maki is left speechless by her sudden appearance. Maki returns the greeting and invites Yumi into his home. She apologizes for the intrusion as she steps inside. Maki asks if Yumi wants tea or coffee. She says she would like tea, but Maki quickly decides to make it himself since it is his house. Yumi insists on handling it and asks Maki if he wants milk or sugar with his drink. He decides on just plain coffee. Maki stares at Yumi and wonders if she is wearing makeup. He thinks that she is sparkling and feels like he can see her aura. Yumi apologizes for the wait as she brings the drinks. Maki continues to stare at her. Yumi notices Maki's gaze and asks what is wrong with a serious expression. Maki blushes and lets out a small laugh. Maki and Yumi sit together on the sofa with their drinks. Maki steals a few glances at her and thinks about how good she smells. Yumi quietly says his name. Yumi tells Maki not to just stare at her legs. Maki nervously explains he was only wondering if she was cold, and Yumi loudly admits that she is freezing. Maki remarks that she isn't invincible after all. Yumi admits she regretted her choice of outfit as soon as she left home, knowing it was too cold to have her legs uncovered. She explains that she just decided to endure the temperature to get to his house. Maki tells Yumi that she shouldn't push herself so hard because she might catch a cold. He suggests she change into some trousers, but Yumi starts to explain her reason. Yumi looks at Maki and confesses that she thought she looked pretty in the outfit and really wanted him to see her wearing it. Maki thinks Yumi looks like she is sparkling and acknowledges her feelings. Yumi adds that it took her a long time to get ready because she was worried about looking good enough to walk beside him in his new clothes. Maki reflects on the fact that Yumi has many more clothing options than he does. Maki worries that if they continue dating, his current wardrobe won't be sufficient, and he needs to be more careful with his appearance. He wants to be as stylish as Yumi, but realizes he might run out of money. Maki considers getting a part-time job to fund his new lifestyle when Yumi calls out to him. Yumi stands up and asks Maki how she looks today. Maki gets flustered and struggles to find the words to respond. Yumi teases Maki, saying she already knows what he thinks because of the expression he made when he first saw her at the door. She giggles at how embarrassing the situation is for him. Maki decides to speak up and tells Yumi directly that she looks very pretty. Maki confesses that he was honestly captivated by her appearance. Yumi stares back with a deep blush on her face. Yumi says she is happy to hear that. Maki wonders if his reaction is a result of all the effort he put into getting ready since early that morning. As they prepare to leave, Yumi asks Maki if he forgot anything and checks if he has his wallet and handkerchief. Maki confirms he has everything and notes that she sounds just like his mother. Yumi sighs with relief and admits she's glad she brought tights since they make a big difference against the cold. Maki agrees that it's not good to just endure the low temperatures and feels relieved for her. A strong gust of wind blows as they walk outside, causing Yumi to complain about the weather. She holds her skirt down while Maki watches in silence. Yumi leans in and whispers to Maki, asking him to cover her so other people can't look up her skirt in the wind. Maki is caught off guard by the sudden request. Maki acknowledges that it is a windy day and promises to do his best to help her. He feels a sense of duty and resolves to be extra careful throughout their date. They arrive at the station building and walk past movie posters. Maki notes that their only plan for the day was to watch a film together. Yumi suggests they wander around for a while before heading to the cinema. Maki follows closely behind her, staring intently as he tries to fulfill his promise to protect her. Yumi realizes that the person meant to cover her is actually the one peeking at her the most. Maki gets defensive and asks what she means by that remark. Yumi bluntly calls Maki a perverted person, claiming he has always been that way. Maki is annoyed that she is starting with her teasing again. Yumi points a finger and accuses him of looking at her that way even when they are just playing games. Maki is shocked that she knew all along and offers a flustered apology. Yumi clarifies that she isn't actually angry, noting that a short skirt naturally creates openings in her defense. Maki wonders if she is some kind of samurai because of the way she talks. Yumi gives a bright smile and says she is having fun. Maki looks a bit weary but goes along with her. The two eventually arrive at the Yahello cinema to watch their movie. Yumi admits she has never seen a romance film in a theater before. Maki says the same but mentions it's popular online, though he secretly worries that this specific movie might make him cry. Maki looks around in awe as they walk through the cinema hallway toward their assigned room. Maki notices that the theater is filled with couples, which makes him a bit nervous. Yumi leads him to their specific row and seat numbers as he follows her up the stairs. Maki observes the theater seats and notes that they look different from usual. Yumi reveals with a giggle that they are called couple seats. Maki is left completely stunned and struggles to blurt out a response. Maki worries if the special seats are more expensive. Yumi finds his reaction unique and admits that she likes it. Yumi explains she always wanted to know if the seats were comfortable and says it is fine since they are on a date. Maki blushes and notes they are still just friends, which leaves Yumi looking astonished. Yumi pats the cushion and tells Maki to sit down since the seats are already paid for. Maki tells himself not to forget the nature of their relationship so easily. Yumi remarks that the seats are really soft, wider, and more comfortable. Maki gives a quiet confirmation while looking away. Maki asks Yumi why she is sitting so close and glued to his side. Yumi simply states it is because they are in couple seats. Maki wonders if she is using that phrase as an all-purpose excuse. Yumi wonders out loud what they would do if a classmate happened to see them together. Maki agrees and thinks there would be no way to make an excuse for the situation. Maki reflects on the fact that he is wearing clothes she chose. She is all dressed up, and they are about to watch a romantic film. Maki thinks about the weight of the word date. Yumi announces that the movie is finally starting. The Giotto Cinema logo appears on the big screen. Maki thinks he is glad to spend the day having fun and laughing with her. The movie features a dramatic scene where a character reveals they are very sick and don't have much time left. Maki and Yumi sit in the darkened theater. Maki admits to himself that he doesn't quite get the emotional weight of the story. Maki stares at the screen with a flat expression and wonders if the movie is actually quite boring. Maki finds the movie's plot about terminal illness and meeting an ex to be boring instead of thrilling. He thinks it would be more entertaining as a sitcom watched at home and feels it is impossible to be moved by the current story. Maki checks the time on his phone inside his bag and is shocked to see it is only 12:32. He is distressed to realize only an hour has passed since the movie started. Maki peeks at Yumi and wonders if she is enjoying the film. She is staring intently at the screen while he remains sweating and bored. Maki notices that Yumi is really focused on watching the movie. He looks at her with a surprised expression as she stays completely still. The movie continues with characters arguing about how much time is left and refusing to listen. Maki watches the screen with a blank look and feels disconnected from the drama. A close-up of a kiss between the characters appears on the big screen. Maki panics as a love scene suddenly takes place. He admits he doesn't understand the sudden shift in tone while Yumi continues to watch in silence beside him. Maki wonders why the scene is so long and notes that the film has no age rating. He gets more flustered as the romantic moment on screen drags on and wonders how the heroine is supposed to return to life. Yumi leans her head onto Maki's shoulder. He is left completely stunned and frozen in his seat as she rests against him. Maki stares ahead with wide eyes and a look of total shock. Yumi rests her head peacefully on Maki's shoulder during the movie. Maki nervously calls out Yumi's name, but she doesn't respond. He starts to sweat from the close proximity and the weight of her head on him. Maki notices how soft Yumi feels as she leans against his side. Maki is overwhelmed with panic and blushes deeply. He wonders what he should do in this situation as Yumi stays leaning on his shoulder. Maki remains silent and stays perfectly still in the couple's seat. He continues to let Yumi rest her head on his shoulder while the other people in the theater watch the film. Maki's heart beats fast as he thinks about being in a public place. He remembers his previous thought about the couple in front of them lacking common sense, but decides he should react in some way since Yumi is being brave and trying to make a move. Maki thinks that they should do such things in a different place as he looks at Yumi with a nervous expression. Maki leans his face in very close to Yumi while her eyes are closed and her mouth is slightly open. Maki realizes that Yumi is actually completely asleep on his shoulder. Yumi whispers that the movie was awfully boring. Maki notes that she got up early that morning. Yumi points at a poster for a different movie and says they should have watched that one instead since it's the kind of film they both like. Yumi admits that the movie choice was a huge mistake and offers a sincere apology. Maki remains silent as he listens to her. Yumi points ahead and says she did some research to find a good place for a date, adding that lunch is on her. Maki thinks to himself that seeing her peaceful sleeping face during the film made the experience not that bad for him. The two arrive at a cafe only to find a very long queue of customers waiting outside. Yumi apologizes for the wait as the wind blows around them. Maki tells her not to worry and hands her a hand warmer to keep her comfortable. Yumi laughs and tells Maki that he acts like an old man. He mentions that he has even more warmers for the soles of her feet and says he will give them to her later. Yumi giggles and remarks that being with Maki is always like this. He looks at her with a curious expression. Yumi explains that she is always calmed by his presence and feels a sense of relief when they are together. The two sit at a table inside the cafe while a waitress calls for the next customers. Maki admits that he is feeling a bit out of the ordinary today, which surprises Yumi. Maki tells Yumi that there was a time when he used to make fun of these kinds of date plans. Maki reflects that he once thought waiting in a long queue just to eat lunch was a complete waste of time. He looks down at the food on his plate. Maki tells Yumi that he no longer views waiting as a waste of time. He explains that while standing in the queue, he noticed how much everyone else was enjoying themselves, which made him rethink his previous mindset. Maki compares himself to an old man and expresses doubt about being a good date partner. They sit in the cafe while other customers chat around them. Maki blushes as he tells Yumi that he wants to go to many different places with her from now on and learn something new each time. Maki clarifies that he only wants to go if Yumi is interested. He looks away in embarrassment and privately questions why he said such things. Yumi laughs heartily at Maki's bashful behavior and calls him cute. Maki reacts with total surprise at her sudden outburst. Yumi offers a brief apology to Maki. Yumi explains that being with Maki makes her feel both relieved and excited. She looks at him with a warm, sincere gaze. Yumi hides a giggle behind her hand and asks Maki if she can tell him something. Maki looks at her with wide eyes and asks what it is. Yumi notes that the food is delicious, but the portions are quite small. Maki listens to her observation as they sit across from each other. The two agree that they are still hungry enough to eat a burger even after finishing their lunch. Outside, the sign for a karaoke establishment stands nearby. They head into a karaoke room where Yumi excitedly suggests they sing their hearts out for the next 2 hours. Maki admits it is his first time at karaoke, so Yumi asks if he understands how to use the equipment. Yumi tells Maki to select a song while she sings her choice. Maki agrees and starts browsing the songs on the tablet. Yumi begins her song and Maki is captivated by her performance. He thinks to himself that she sings excellently and looks like a professional idol. Maki admits he is embarrassed because he thinks he is bad at singing and dislikes how his voice trembles when he tries to be loud. Yumi is surprised by this and proposes that they sing a song together. Maki is stunned by the idea and stares at Yumi in disbelief as she holds a microphone toward him. Yumi explains that karaoke isn't a contest to see who sings the best, but a way to enjoy singing aloud. Maki continues to stare at her while holding a microphone. Maki eventually agrees and takes his turn to sing. A series of scenes show the two of them cheering each other on and having a great time, with Yumi even playing a tambourine during Maki's performance. They step outside as the sun begins to set. Yumi sighs and says that they gave it their all. Yumi notes that Maki can sing just like everyone else and remarks that he looked exhausted after singing with all his heart. Maki admits that once he started, he couldn't stop himself. Maki explains that this was the first time he ever sang in front of someone and thanks Yumi for making it such a positive experience. Yumi giggles at his comment. Yumi suggests that they should participate together if there's a karaoke tournament after school is over. Maki is surprised by the proposal. Maki says that singing in front of a crowd would be very embarrassing for him. Yumi listens with a smile while they continue walking. Maki mentions that he was thinking about going to karaoke again just to gain more experience and says he would be happy if Yumi could join him. Maki asks if it would be just the two of them. Yumi turns to look at him with a curious expression. Yumi gives a bright smile and suggests they have another karaoke date soon. Maki gives a quiet confirmation. Maki thinks that Yu would also like to tag along next time they go. Yumi agrees that is likely the case. Maki asks how good Yu is at singing. Yumi notes that she is crazy about it, and Maki thinks to himself that her reaction is exactly what he expected. They look up and notice how dark it has already become outside. Maki tells Yumi that he will walk her home. She offers a sincere thanks and eventually grabs onto his arm as they walk down the street together. Maki blushes and thinks to himself that his pocket feels very warm because he always keeps a heat pack inside. Yumi smiles and lets out a small laugh as they continue their walk. Yumi remarks that their current situation reminds her of another time they spent together. Maki remembers a past moment at school when Yumi leaned in close to him. The memory lingers as he remains quiet. As they enter the station, Maki wonders if he should take this moment to confess his feelings to Yumi. Maki hesitates, questioning if a station he uses every day is the right place for a confession. He considers that today might not be special enough for such a big step. Yumi looks at Maki with a warm smile and says that the way they are acting is very typical for them. Maki suddenly reaches out and takes Yumi's hand to get her attention. Maki's heart beats rapidly as he prepares to speak. He notes that even though they both understand the situation, he is still incredibly nervous as he calls out to her. Yumi looks back at him with a surprised expression and asks what he wants. Maki struggles to find his words and begins to stammer as he tries to start his confession. Before Maki can finish his sentence, a voice calls out the name Mr. Mihara from nearby, catching him off guard. Yumi spots a woman in the distance and asks Maki if he knows her. Maki quickly looks away and claims that the woman isn't calling for him, suggesting it might be another person with the same name. Yumi laughs and admits the sudden shout gave her a scare. She notices Maki's distressed state and asks him what is wrong. Maki recognizes the woman as someone who works for his father. He watches from a distance as she speaks with his dad. Yumi asks if Maki's father is divorced and he confirms that he is. Maki mentions seeing his father with the woman at a department store the previous day and realizes why his father seemed so distracted during their recent yakiniku dinner. Yumi observes Maki's father and Minato, noting that they seem to be very close with one another. Maki gives a quiet confirmation as they watch from the side. Maki looks down and dismissively says that his father's personal life doesn't really matter to him at all. Maki suggests they leave immediately before they are spotted thinking that his father is entitled to his own privacy after the divorce. Yumi starts to say something but stops as he insists it would be bad to meet them now. Yumi suddenly pulls Maki into a firm hug and tells him to just bear with her for a moment. Maki is caught completely off guard by her sudden action. Yumi notes that the two adults are walking right toward them. Minato notices the hugging couple and stops in surprise as she watches them. Minato passes by with the father and asks him if he thinks the two teenagers are a couple. The adults continue walking away without recognizing them. Maki stays hidden in Yumi's embrace as he watches them go from over her shoulder. Yumi confirms that the adults have finally left and releases Maki. Maki offers a sincere apology for the situation, but Yumi shakes her head and tells him that he isn't the one to blame. Maki notes that neither his father nor Minato did anything wrong. He tells Yumi that they should head home, though he privately thinks about how much he hates what happened. Maki remarks that Sora might get worried if they return too late. He reflects on how they were having so much fun and feels guilty for ruining the mood. As they walk, Yumi takes Maki's hand and tells him to always come to her for advice if anything is bothering him. While standing on the train, Yumi explains that she might not be able to solve all his problems, but she can at least listen to his worries. Maki gives a quiet acknowledgement as the train travels through the city at night. Maki arrives back at his apartment and announces that he is home as he steps into the dark hallway. Maki notices a light coming from one of the rooms and wonders if his mother has already returned. Maki's mother welcomes him home as he enters the room. She offers a quick apology for smoking inside, but Maki tells her that he doesn't mind. His mother asks if he had a good time on his date, and Maki gives a quiet confirmation. She admits that she is completely exhausted and plans to go straight to bed without showering, and Maki agrees with her decision. As Maki turns to leave, his mother calls out his name. She says she needs to tell him something now before she forgets. She explains that his father reached out to ask if he would be free for their interview next Friday night. His mother asks if his schedule is clear for the meeting. Maki gives a simple confirmation and says he is okay with it, though he remains very evasive about the topic. Maki lies in bed and stares up at the ceiling of his quiet room. He reflects on a past moment with his mother where he asked her if she still loves his father. His mother tells him that it is fine. She explains that even though they divorced for various reasons, his father still holds a place deep within her heart. She mentions that she couldn't bring herself to throw away the photo album featuring the three of them and brought it along when they moved. Maki lies in bed and processes her words. Maki wonders if they took many photos together when he was a child. He thinks about how many pictures he has taken lately, but decides that isn't the case for him. He looks at a photo on his phone from the cultural festival that Nina took of him and Yumi. He sees a message from her saying she finished editing the image. Maki lets out a small laugh as his phone suddenly dings with a notification. He checks his screen and sees a new message from Nozomu asking if he is free to talk right now. The sun shines over the school building the following morning. Maki enters the classroom and is immediately greeted by Yumi, who wishes him a cheerful good morning. Maki finds Yumi and his mother sitting together on the couch. He asks what they are doing, and his mother explains that they are looking through the Mihara family's collection of memories. Maki asks in frustration why his mother decided to take the album out. She explains that talking about it made her remember, and since Maki had left it out, Yumi asked to see the photos. Maki's mother says she is heading off to work and tells the two teenagers to be careful on their way to school. Maki and Yumi wish her a nice day in return. The two students remain in the room together as the atmosphere lightens. Maki teases Yumi by asking if she thinks she is part of his family since she looked so natural sitting with his mother. Yumi admits that she did feel that way for a moment. Maki asks Yumi if she has eaten breakfast yet and offers to make some pancakes. Yumi stays quiet as she reflects on his comment about her being part of the family. As they sit down to eat, Yumi mentions that entrance tests are approaching. She suggests that they should spend next Friday studying together. Maki looks away and explains that he won't be able to make it because he has plans to meet with his father. Yumi expresses surprise at the news. Maki explains that they meet occasionally to have a meal and catch up. Yumi asks if he is truly okay with that given their recent encounter, and Maki confirms that he is. Yumi wonders if his parents have spoken to each other recently, but Maki says it would be pointless. He explains that he wants to ask his father why he wants to meet, since leaving things unresolved feels strange, though he doesn't expect anything major to happen. Maki turns the conversation back to the topic of their upcoming study session. Since Maki already has plans for Friday, Yumi suggests finding another day to work together, and he agrees with the idea. Yumi notes that she has received a complaint from their guest. Maki asks her who she is referring to. Yuu cries out for help because the amount of material for the next test is overwhelming. Yumi remarks that their princess is currently facing a difficult predicament. Yumi asks if she can bring Yuu along to study, and Maki gives his approval. She then reveals that she has another guest she would like to include as well. Yumi and Yuu arrive at Maki's house. Yuu notes it's been a while as she walks in, and Yumi offers a polite greeting. Maki peeks out with a look of surprise. Maki spots Seki crouching outside and tells him to just come inside already. Maki notes that this has turned into a sort of double booking for him. Seki is flustered and remembers being rejected just the other day. The previous night, Seki called Maki while he was in bed. Seki pleaded for help with English and science subjects. Seki enters the apartment while offering an apology for the intrusion. Maki asks him if he is going to chicken out now that he's actually here. The study group gathers in the room. Yumi tells Yuu that Maki can teach English and classical literature, while Maki offers to help Seki with math and science. Yuu and Seki both cheer excitedly and promise to do their best. Yumi and Maki look on as their friends get fired up for the session. As they look over the study materials, Yuu asks if she can skip a particularly difficult question. Yumi suggests they focus on going over the test scope first and leave the application for later. Yumi helps Yuu work through a math problem and confirms she is on the right track. She then asks if Yuu remembers the formula to find an angle, which leaves Yuu feeling quite confused. Yuu is impressed by how easily Yumi and Maki seem to be handling the material. Seki apologizes for needing so much help and asks the two of them if they are doing fine with their own studies. Maki wonders about Yumi's actual ranking in the class. Yumi explains that she usually ranks in the single digits, though she aims to stay at least in 10th place. Maki notes that he is barely keeping up behind her as they look at a chart comparing their grades to Yuu and Seki, who are in danger of failing. Seki realizes that if their grades stay as they are, there is a chance they will all be in different classes next year. Yuu is shocked by the news and asks why that would happen. Maki confirms that their class placement for the following year is indeed determined by their grades. Yuu starts to weep at the thought of being separated from Yumi. She is determined to stay together and doesn't want their friendship to be affected by the class changes. Yuu declares that they can no longer afford to study half-heartedly and resolves to memorize the entire classical literature book. Seki wonders if she has been taking things too lightly this whole time. Yuu addresses Maki as teacher and urgently asks him to provide the questions most likely to appear on the test. Seki thinks to himself that Yuu is a very amusing person. Maki tells Yuu to give him the conjugation forms of the sentences he points to. She enthusiastically agrees. While he points out the first question, he feels a sudden nudge from Yumi's hand under the table. Maki tries to stay focused, telling himself that it is nothing and he is simply teaching Yuu. Yumi watches him with a lingering stare while Yuu continues to shout out her answers. The group continues their practice with Yuu and Yumi correctly identifying various conjugation forms. Seki interrupts to ask Yumi for help with the placement of parentheses in a specific formula. Seki notices that the other three are quite busy as Yuu celebrates her perfect score. Maki and Yumi react to being crowded together by Yuu's excitement. Maki asks the group if they would like to take a break from studying now. Maki serves some muffins made from leftover pancake mix. Seki's stomach growls and he laments that he is currently on a diet. Yu remarks that the food is good for the brain while Maki feels a bit guilty for eating in front of his hungry friend. Yu happily offers to eat Seki's portion since he is dieting. Seki cries over his predicament and wonders if she is a devil while Maki looks on. Yumi tells Maki that he has something stuck to his cheek. Maki is confused and tries to find the spot. Yumi directs Maki's hand but notes he is going too far in the wrong direction. She looks annoyed as he continues to miss the spot. Yumi reaches over and wipes the food off Maki's face herself. He offers a quick thanks and she says it was no problem. Yu and Seki stare intensely at the couple after witnessing the intimate moment. Seki tells the two of them to save those kinds of actions for when they are alone. Both Maki and Yumi offer flustered apologies in response. Yu sighs and says that watching the two of them makes her want to find a boyfriend of her own. Seki is completely stunned by Yu's sudden declaration. Maki watches his friend's dramatic reaction with a tired expression. Yumi suggests that Yu could get any boyfriend she wanted if she were actually curious. Yu pouts and admits there isn't any specific boy she is interested in dating right now. Maki and Seki react as the conversation continues during their break. Yu points out how lucky Yumi is to have someone as kind as Maki who even makes sweets for her. Maki notes that Yu likely just wants the treats for herself. Yu rests her chin on her hand and wonders if she should look for someone kind, high-speced, and strong to match her own personality. Yumi tells Yu that her description perfectly fits her instead. Yu reacts with excitement while Maki and Seki sit dejectedly in the background trying to ignore the comment. As the study session ends, Seki thanks his friends and says he finally feels like he has a chance at passing the tests. Maki agrees that it was a productive review session for everyone. Yumi encourages Seki to do his best and avoid a failing grade on the test. She then turns to Maki and says she will see him tomorrow. Maki waves and tells Yumi that he will see her tomorrow at school. After the others leave, Yumi suddenly turns around and steps back inside the apartment. Yumi asks Maki if she can lean on his back for a short moment. Maki is surprised by the sudden request. Maki quietly turns his back toward Yumi as she stands close behind him. Yumi leans her head against Maki's back. He asks her what is wrong, and she admits that she knows she is being annoying by acting this way. Maki thinks back to Yu's earlier comment about how nice it was to have him around. Yumi clings to his clothes from behind as they stand in silence. Maki realizes that while Yu was likely just joking, Yumi was genuinely blushing during that conversation. Yumi explains that she really didn't like what happened with Sani and Manaka. Yumi confesses that while she could handle those previous situations, she wouldn't be able to recover if Maki were ever taken from her or left. Maki is left completely stunned by her honesty. Yumi gives a quiet confirmation to Maki's reassurances. He tells her that everything will be just fine between them. Yumi looks at Maki with a lingering gaze, her expression softening as she focuses only on him. Yumi offers an apology for acting annoying, but Maki insists that her annoying side is cute as well. Yumi calls him a weirdo and reaches out to playfully pinch his cheek. Maki points out that Yumi also calls him cute quite often. He hides his face behind his hand as he becomes flustered by the conversation. Maki explains he only calls her cute because she truly is. Yumi responds that the same applies to her and she is simply being honest about what is on her mind. Yumi insists that he can't say those things so easily. Maki asks for the reason and Yumi blushes as she declares that cute things are simply cute. The couple is suddenly interrupted as Seki and Yu peer through the doorway, having witnessed their intimate moment. Seki offers a flustered apology for the intrusion. Yu explains that they had reached the lift but realized the other two weren't following, so they came back to check. A panicked Yumi begins to push her friends out of the apartment. She tells them that if they really want to leave, they should just go on ahead without her and Maki.